Good evening, townspeople. Tonight, you'll be watching the Wednesday, August 2nd Board of Selectmen meeting. We've got a few announcements to make. We'll be hearing from various departments within town. We have a pretty full agenda. We have monthly meetings now, which are held on the first Wednesday of every month. So the meeting's been called to order. Under announcements, did you have anything, Marlene? Or okay, so I just want to announce that the 350th anniversary committee, those folks that have shown an interest thus far, will be meeting on August 14th at 6:30 here at Town Hall. So the way we envision this is the steering committee will be overseeing the celebration of our 350th incorporation of the town. But anybody in town is certainly welcome to assist and be part of the process. So, but we need the steering committee to sort of guide the events that are going to take place, which are yet to be determined. So once again, that'll be on August 14th, 6:30 here at Town Hall. We'd also like to recognize and thank. We have a couple of retirements, so we'd like to recognize and thank Dave Lysick, an electrical inspector, and Walter Garrick, plumbing inspector, both of whom have retired from those positions. So we'd like to thank them for their past service to the town. I don't know that there's anything else. Did you have anything, Cindy or Ed? I guess the last thing I would say is Comcast did notify us that when you open your bill next month, there'll be an insert there telling you of some changes to upcoming programming if you're a town of Hatfield resident. So don't just throw everything away if you want to know what's going on that comes in your bill. That's it for announcements. Is there anybody here for the public forum? Okay, seeing none. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of April 24th, May 23rd, and June 7th. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the April 24th
On
minutes?
6/7/17,
Okay,
under EMT, which is under this section here, should be EMS.
okay, so paragraph 4,
Yeah.
it looks like. Okay. Okay, so the liaison for the fire department, she works in EMS. Okay, so just a little change there. Any other changes to the June minutes? Okay. Are there any changes to the April minutes that anybody wants to make, April 24th? You're all set with those then? And how about May 23rd? Any changes? All right. So motion's been made, seconded, and all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. All right. Our first topic on the agenda is an update from Fire Chief Gaughan. And so we would ask, if you don't mind, Stephen, to come forward and do your thing.
So I've actually been trying to get here for a few months. I just give you a quick update, and then I have a few issues, tasks, things that we need to take up.
Sure.
So the first is that things are busy. We're moving right along. We're on pace for roughly 250 inspections or permits issued. 125 ambulance and about 125 fire calls and about 320 ambulance calls. So we're seeing a lot. We've been able to move a lot of our stuff electronic. Mm-hmm. One of the movements that we made last effective July 1st was to implement a little bit of help in the office to put in permits. And we've been able to do that and get a lot of our permits into electronically. So things are moving a lot smoother, but we're definitely staying busy. With that, we're always looking for people. So we're looking for firefighters, we're looking for EMTs. Again, in the line item in the budget this year is money that comes from the ambulance, is money to pay for citizens to go to EMT class. I'm exploring some other options of ways to recruit, possibly, recruitment and like a stipend, like a bonus at recruitment. There is some legislation that's traveling in Boston that talks about that will allow for a local option for select boards or town meetings to enact a tax break for volunteer firefighters. And if that does come down the pipe, that's something obviously to look at. But we're always looking for people, and you don't need to, we're willing to train people, you don't need any experience. We can train you on the fire side, we can train people on the ambulance side, we're willing to send them to EMT class. And so really more than willing, and we're always looking. With that, we've had some changes. People come and people go. Sometimes it's tough to keep young people in town, and then sometimes it's tough just to people's lives change. Mike Kasiak from Mountain Road. Mike he's been here 17 years, and him and his family are moving to South Carolina. So he was a captain, and it's a big hole for us. Dwayne Meehan, who has lived in town for a number of years, but really wanted to buy a house, couldn't buy a house in town, because, well, some of them aren't cheap. And ended up buying a house in Plainfield, because, well, he really wanted a house and some open land and to hunt. And he's gone to Plainfield, and he was a lieutenant. So there's been some changes, and we're seeing some young new people, which is wonderful. So with that, we've had to make some movements. And so we've moved 2 new captains, Alan Belden and Ray Romero are being moved to captain, and then we're going to appoint 3 new lieutenants. And that process is pretty much set, but we just have to finalize that with some internal interviews. And so things are moving, and we're moving towards the future, but we can always use people. We struggle during the day now. We really, we're lucky enough to have a couple people that work in town, but you know what? It's probably 2 less than we did 2 years ago. One of the things when Chief Belden was here was that I worked a rotating schedule, so I was another person with Chief Belden. Right. And well, Chief Belden retired, and my rotating schedule is here. I'm here. So we're struggling during the day, and we're working on options and to look at that. And down the pipe, I'm looking at some other options. But positives, with all of this, we are doing calls. The ambulance. So the ambulance, we had some. The town had some accounting things over the years, and the ambulance was the ambulance surplus. How much the ambulance was in the black was down to a relatively smaller figure. Sequentially, over the last few years, we've increased that, and now my figures based on revenues that I've turned in for FY17 is that the ambulance, when 18 is funded and 17 is closed, the ambulance should still be about $67,000 in the black. I know that seems like nothing, but I will tell you that 5 years ago, the ambulance was like $2,000 in the black when all said and done. So we're making increases, and are we going to make a huge increase like this every year? No. It's going to top out at some point, but it should sequentially, there should be enough money every year, and there's more. Basically, what I'm saying is that the ambulance is outlegging what comes in is much greater than what's being expended. So we're making big strides with the ambulance. In the end, in the long run, that may help out some of our staffing issue. Maybe we'll find some ways around that with those funds. But we're moving forward. Ambulance revenue, along with that goes the upgrade. So the town funded the paramedic upgrade at town meeting. The equipment has all been ordered. Along with that is the paramedic equipment, but there's also 3 AEDs that will go to the athletic teams at the high school level. Because we worked in conjunction with the school department. So that is all ordered. Some of it's actually already arrived. The state will be here the first week of October. Our drug license is all submitted. We should be basically effective the first week of October, or the second week of October. We should have the green light start to deliver in paramedic care. It's one more step to making the ambulance, more effective, have a quicker response to citizens, and realistically, financially more profitable and more feasible. For the town in itself. But it's more than sustaining itself at this point anyway. Aside from that, we continue our annual stuff. We service our equipment. I've had a lot of talks with people about grants. If you look, you saw that Chesterfield got a grant for some breathing apparatus, and Worthington just got a grant for a truck. Well, they replaced a 50-year-old truck in Worthington, and the breathing apparatus Chesterfield was using was stuff we gave them 15 years ago. We do have a grant out there, an application out there, a similar style grant, that same grant category where it's still very active and we still are alive in the process for $60,000 in communication equipment. Chief Belden put us in a very good position in this town. And so, we don't get some of those competitive grants for that other bigger stuff, because, well, we're not in as dire shape. They're in rough shape, some of those departments. And a credit to our people and the Chief Belden for putting us in the position we're in, and the town for basically putting money into public safety. With that, we're also looking, so FY19 is going to be, on the capital projects is the ambulance and the replacement of a fire truck. So we're still working on some committees on that. We've done some preliminary work on that stuff. And should hopefully talk to the mechanic and stuff like that. I don't know what the status is of an annual fall town meeting still. I know that there's potential. If there is, I know we talked about some capital items.
Yeah.
That our jaws are still aged and weary, but
Yeah.
they're there, and we do what we can, and we have a good system in place. All right, so this brings you now, I just want to talk about wages. So interestingly enough, this is the third time you've talked about wages at select board meetings. I apologize, I couldn't make the second one, and the first one I kind of didn't have on the schedule.
That's okay. Could I interrupt you for
Yeah.
1 second, Steve? I'm sorry. Just before we go on to
Right.
kind of a new topic, did either of you, no, that's okay. Did anyone have a question about any of the information Stephen's
No.
provided so far before we move on?
The written?
Well, no, about what you just talked about now, any?
Well, if you're talking about wages, yeah, I guess I just ask, you said you lost one captain, but you made 2 captains, is that right?
Yeah, so I had an
So you
vacant
changed the
captain.
rank
I had
structure?
an empty captain spot. I've had an empty captain spot for some time, because, we don't just put people in positions because we have positions. We wait until we are sure we have people that are ready. And our feeling was that we had some vacancies at lieutenant.
You can tell, I was just,
Yeah.
because you said you're losing people, so I didn't know if you
Yeah.
lost more than the 2.
No,
you
I just lost
mentioned.
those 2, but I promoted 2 lieutenants to captains. I had 1 captain spot open, because realistically, I had 3 brand new, those 3 lieutenants were new a couple of years ago, and it was better. And Mike actually, Mike took a lot of weight, and Mike was strong in that position. It was, he could do the work of 2, sometimes I believe, so. Yeah, that's kind of where it comes from.
Okay.
No.
All right,
Thank
the
you.
next thing comes down is wages. So we had there's been some discussion about wages. And I didn't get the first meeting I wasn't here, the second wasn't around. But wages is something I wanted to bring to the board's attention and talk about. And when we look at, and I talked to Marlene about this a little while ago, so when you look at wages and you look at the general laws, in fact, annually, I'm supposed to bring you a list of wages. And you approve the wages I submit to you. And because we do want to be compliant with stuff like that. And also it gives me an opportunity to talk with you about why I think different things need to happen. So we have a couple things. So I put some little packets together for all of you. So there's the next topic is in here too.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'll go down these very quickly. So the majority of these, if not, majority of them are in accordance with what was talked about was the 2% and 3%.
Okay.
I will tell you that the 2% and 3%, applying it to these positions is not in fact the greatest thing in some ways, because the town, we spent a lot of money years ago establishing the rates and the positions on a study that we had done. And then by giving the people over a certain $1 an hour amount, only 2 and the other below them 3, we start to narrow the wages, the gaps
Right.
between the positions.
Yeah.
And yeah, 1 year it's not a big deal. If we do it more than a couple of times, we'll really start to eliminate the differences. But in general, I did stick with that. The differences outside of what, outside of the 2%, 3%, the first thing down the list is firefighter training. So firefighter training, years ago was equal to the regular rate. And the town was in a budget crisis many years ago, Marlene's first trip here. So how long do you think that was?
It was 7 years ago.
7 years ago. And so 7 years ago, the guys and girls did not want to take a cut in their training hours, because training is important. There's 1,000 hours of training a year. They don't want to take a cut in their training hours, so what they said was, we still want to do training, so we'll cut our rate. And they cut the rate. All well and good, we cut it. We increased it a little bit here and there. And then recently, the first version of this didn't give them a raise at all. I looked at it, I talked to some other people. I'm gonna be honest, the highway kids, who are wonderful kids, do strong work, get $11.85 an hour. And the guys doing technical training here, we're getting 11. Like, there's no direct correlation to that. So what I am bringing forward to you is to put their training at $12 an hour. And then moving forward, it moves in whatever sequential percentage is agreed upon by the committees and myself. It's obviously still way less than their regular rate, but, it's the principle of it all. The kids do great work. I'm not begrudging them. In fact, I've seen them on 95-degree days working a weed whacker. They probably deserve more too. But I think these guys deserve this. I think it should be $12 an hour. It's annually a correlation of roughly $700 to $750 in my budget. I have that money in my budget. I had money left over in my budget this past fiscal year, in my personnel line, my salaries line. It's not going to have a massive effect.
So it can be absorbed.
In the current budget.
Should we go that way in
Yes,
the current budget?
I'm not seeking any seek for additional funding at all here.
And is the training right now, is it $11 an hour?
It is $11.33, because it was
$11.33.
$11, and the second time you took it up, it gained 33 cents.
Gotcha.
And then, but it's
3%.
$11.33 is still lower than the weed whacker.
Understood.
And I like those kids, really, nothing against those kids. I don't want this to seem like, but I just think that this is important.
Sure.
And I'm not saying we incrementally every year increase it, any massive amount, but it should really have a better starting point.
Okay.
And years ago, when they did take the hit under Chief Belden, the talk was, hey, we'll return this to you in the future. So, it is what it is, and we're working with it, and no one. As we move down farther, there's really two other things: the fire watch, firefighter, fire officer, fire watch officer, and the EMS detail. So what those are is that, in fact, with our fee schedule, we had set rates, fire watch rates. So a fire watch rate, if a business is compliant, they have to have a sprinkler system in place to stay open. They have some trouble maintaining their fire pump. They lose something else. They lose the water line. They want to stay open and run their business, but they don't have a sprinkler, then they hire a fire watch. There's a lot of ways around to comply with it. One option to any business is sometimes insurance kicks in and they say, we'll put whatever we want. So the comparison, the town of Hadley fire watch is $60 an hour. Our fire watch rate is $45 an hour, which is why I utilize those rates. So it's given that the hourly rate is still less than 90% of the cost of the fire watch, of the fee, because the common rule of thumb is 10% for any rate is payroll costs when you assess fee to someone. The ambulance one's the same. The ambulance, so we run the ambulance. The ambulance goes to a couple of private staff's EMS for a couple events a year in town. They're private events. The understanding is that the ambulance is there when it's not needed for an emergency in town. If it's needed for an emergency town, it leaves the private event. The ambulance, we charge $55 an hour. That is $75 less than the lowest rate you'll find anywhere else. The going rate for an ambulance head of detail is $125. So we really are doing, a solid, a service to these people. The food bank is the most regular user of it. We put it down there. It's some good public relations. The EMTs, you get paid for being there all day, and the town still, gains on the payroll tax. There's no loss in the town. I've talked to the accountant. I've asked him for separate funds for this, because that way these rates are not funneled through our payroll line.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have, I believe he's established the fire one. The EMS one he has not yet, but this is a no-cost item for the town. It's money and it's a balance. In the end of the year, it should be zero.
Sure. Again, just to clarify, similar to the training is, which is in your budget, this money for the fire watch and the EMS detail is, actually the compensation comes from whoever's holding the event or whoever's building.
We bill them. We'll invoice them.
But I mean, ultimately, that they're the paying.
Right, which is why I asked the accountant to establish those
Right.
accounts. So there's
Right.
so the accounting is very clean, money in and out, and it's no taxpayer dollars.
Right,
It's
just
not
wanted
a dime.
to clarify
Yeah, no,
for
and
everyone.
it's very true. This is why I've asked for this, is because
Yep.
it's not a dime of taxpayer dollars
Right.
here.
Great.
And so that's those, it's very simple. And that's why, and so, if you look at the next page, I printed that general law that talks about that I'm supposed to bring you these rates annually. So that's why I bring you these, because I don't just bring you them out of the blue. It's because I'm
Right.
really supposed to provide these to you annually, and you approve them, or you disapprove of them, and
Right.
that's a discussion, obviously.
Right.
And so that's where we're at with that.
All right. So are you looking for?
I would be looking for a motion.
Right
to
now, or do
approve
you want to go
these
through
pay
your?
rates,
Okay.
Unless,
Well.
I have some questions.
Yep, absolutely.
When you're talking about the training, everyone is required 1,000
no,
hours a year?
I have 1,000 hours total, roughly, a year.
Okay.
The problem is
That's
that
your
the
Thursday night
officers,
training?
get their rate anyway, they don't get that reduced, that training rate, because years ago, the town asked that we eliminate stipends, and so in transition for eliminating stipends that they used to also get, they just get their regular rate for training. It's about 1,000 hours a year, I wanna say.
Do you guys want to speak things, but anyone else have questions?
No,
or
I
anything?
didn't, no, I didn't have any questions.
My only concern doing a motion with this now, okay, is not that people don't deserve money or anything like that, but this came up in June where someone came in and asked about a raise, and it was, raising their rate, and it was denied, and we talked about doing, having some kind of system where we review everyone, like maybe even half, like half the employees 1 year, half the next year, because some people come in and they get denied and some people get a raise. And there's got to be something fair for everyone. And I know there was a lot of blowback.
So the town spent thousands of dollars years ago studying this.
I know, and I looked it up, okay? I looked it up, and back in 2010, there was a personnel, everything came out. They had I made a couple copies. They brought evaluation forms and everything. And I just, like I said, I don't have an issue. I'm sure there's a lot of people here who deserve a raise. But I just find it really hard because I took a lot of blowback. Well, this person was supposed to get a raise. They didn't get a raise, but this person did. And how do you decide who does and who doesn't? And I think and I've been thinking about it a lot. And like I said, reading the HR personnel stuff, and how do you do it fairly? And I brought it up back in June, and it was a verbal thing. We didn't all have a motion and agree on it, but we have to look at everybody fairly, and we can't just look at certain people and not others. And how do you tell, if this goes through, how do we tell that person last month who asked, well, you were denied, you were told to ask again next year, how do we give it to somebody else? And, so that's where I am with this.
Well,
And I understand the pay detail rate, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
That comes from the vendor who hires. I get all that, the detail rate.
I think,
But if you how do we do this fairly?
well,
Some things come before us, we say it without, and
Yeah.
like my suggestion in June was, everybody, and according to these things, there are supposed to be performance evaluations and, all
Right.
that thing, and I don't know, I haven't been here long enough to see, but I don't know
We
if
do
anybody
do-
actually,
We do
uses
them,
those
yes,
forms.
we've done them over the years. We haven't done one in a year, but we do actually do performance evaluations.
But you're not here for you're here for a group, and I get that's a little different,
Well, I'm the
than
chief, yeah.
that,
we-
but,
well, that's.
you know
that-
what I'm saying.
That's really the
It's
only
not
thing
one
I
person,
want.
But that's the only thing, how do we be fair with that issue?
Well, I think what Stephen's proposing, however, is it's about the position. It's not about an individual. It's about if you go to training, you're compensated at this rate, regardless of who you are, unless you're an officer, apparently. Or if you're doing the detail, you get this rate. It's not
Right.
geared towards a particular person in their salary. It's a
But a
particular
position,
function
it's
that
a
they're
position
taking.
that
Right.
it's geared to, and that's what was the position that this other person asked about getting a raise about.
But it's not, it's
Before,
only if you, to get compensated if you go to training, right?
Right,
Come
which
to
is
training.
every
Yeah.
Thursday night.
Yeah.
This is my concern. I'm not denying these
Exactly.
rates, but back in February, we were getting together with the Finance Committee, working together with the Finance Committee to help set rates.
Yeah.
So I'm under the impression that all these rates and stuff is something that we work with the Finance Committee with. And that's what we were doing for the last few months before the budget. We actually worked with the Finance Committee together as a big team to determine the rates and stuff. And if I was to say right now, today, yeah, go ahead, raise your guys, I think it'd be a slap in the face to the Finance Committee
So,
that
I-
we've worked with.
I think
But
that
I'm
there's
not
a-
gonna- But I think you should bring this in during the budget process. I think you make a very solid point and a good point.
So, yeah, so first of all, that understand that the town has not been compliant with the pay rates now for some time, because the general law says that we're supposed to meet and discuss the rates. And we didn't do that. I did bring it to the attention of the town, and that has not happened. It's happening now here tonight. I will tell you, you know, the problem is, the reason that it didn't get picked up, a part of the reason it didn't get picked up at with the budget, finance discussions, is because there really is a gross lack of understanding and transparency in rates across this town.
That's what I'm saying.
Little did I know, well, I did know, you know, in the back of my head, that, you know, the summer help at the highway department was getting $11 and something. And then there was great discussion about me paying someone to help in the office, a high school kid or someone at $12 and something, that's 50 cents an hour. And then you look at all this, and I look at the fact that these gentlemen and ladies are getting 11. I look at the fact that I'm struggling, you know, recruitment is hard here, retention is hard.
I'm not denying any of
EMT,
that.
actually, EMT on
I'm
call did
just
go up
saying-
also a little, a
Stephen,
few
all I'm
cents.
saying is, I think we should have a meeting with you and the Finance Committee
Yeah,
together.
my concern is those meetings are chock full, and I brought this in, so I'll tell you, I'm having a hard, it's hard. It's hard. I'm trying to get people on at night, I'm trying to get people during the day, I'm trying to get people to training. And understand that the town is paying more. I would think, in some ways, to say to them, why come to summer help? Why come to training? You could be the summer help and make more. You know, and it's not even I tell you what, it's not even the dollars. It's not even the cents. It's the principle. And the principle is that these ladies and gentlemen, it's the fact that I'm not asking for more money. I'm actually telling you I'll eat it in my budget. So I'm not asking for another dime. I'm gonna eat this in my budget. In fact, as I brought up to finance and select board, I will give it out of my salary. Like, I said a long time ago that we should be evaluating positions. Brian remembers, so evaluate positions, we should be paying people based on what they deserve.
That's right.
And we should look at every position, and the department head should be given the money and say, here's a percentage you can allocate it in your department. And if I wanted to give it all to the guys and none to me, or all their training and none of their hourly, then I could. So, I bring this to you because as the fire chief, you said, hey, you're here, this is your department, you need to run this department. I'm bringing it to you, telling you that financially, there's no impact on the town on this rate.
I
Right,
think what
and-
you're saying is fantastic, but I think we should have that meeting with you on this, with the board and the Finance Committee together.
The
as well.
finance committee does not dictate the rates. This is what I'm trying to tell you. They gave me a budget. According to the general law and the finance, they gave me a budget. And the budget, and then we decide the rates. I'm telling you that the budget I have can sustain this.
And we had the same thing occur back in, was it May maybe? Where the department had
So I'll have to.
keeping it in his budget and it was denied. And I don't understand how that happened, but it was. So my only concern is trying to, treat everybody fairly here. Because, do you know which one I'm talking? You can't say.
I don't, and it's
Yeah,
just not,
okay.
what, my department
I
is
can't
my
say.
problem,
Right.
not other
Right, so it was
departments, and I
another
don't-
department head, same thing, was gonna keep it in the budget, the raise was denied. And so, that was before my time here, and it's like, but it happens and people don't remember when it happened before, anything like that, and I get all that, that's why, hopefully we can get a system in place or something, where everybody is reviewed equally and, you'd love to give everybody.
Everyone's
a
aware
raise.
that I gave back a significant amount of money to the town
Yep.
in my budget, end of fiscal year money.
And I personally,
25 times the amount I'm asking you for.
Yep. I think that increasing the training amount 67 cents, basically, an hour.
It's probably a great idea.
I think, and it can be absorbed. And I don't necessarily disagree in the future that maybe these are discussions we can have a little bit sooner in the fiscal year, if able to. The other two, and that's going to be absorbed within the fire department's existing budget. The other two are really doesn't matter. It's just an equitable and a fairness thing that gets passed on to whoever you're covering, or whoever you're,
Yeah.
so that's got absolutely nothing to do with
And I
us.
just must clarify,
I mean,
actually, ambulance
yeah.
on call did go up some
Yeah.
too, to 250. It went from like 237 to 250.
Right,
Again, covered within the ambulance.
yeah. And I think that we normally do, or not normally, we do work with the finance committee putting the overall town budgets together. That's true. But ultimately, the pay raises or the amounts and the numbers do come through, bottom line, through the Board of Selectmen. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept to approve the budget as proposed by Chief Gahn. Is there a second? All right, sorry, Stephen, no second.
Okay.
You had something else you wanted to?
Again, my next concern is it's
So.
happened before. The next person
so
comes in and goes,
we
well,
then now need to clarify. 'cause
they have
we need-
1770, they have whatever an hour, well,
Right.
and I'm making this as this, I should make more than that, and it's got to be fair somehow.
Okay.
At some point, we got to make it fair
So
somehow.
I'll turn this back to you and say, how do we legally pay any firefighters past today? We need to set a rate today, so we need to talk about this.
Well,
Well, I'd like you to come back. I would like just to have a little bit more time to think about this, because you just dumped this on us. I just want to think about it, that's all. I'm not denying what you're saying, and I can understand what
That's
you're
fine.
saying.
Hey,
I just
decision,
want
I'm
to,
not-
because we spent so much time working with the finance committee to set rates, I know you're saying we set rates, but it's hard to say, okay, well, this person has this money. You're probably right that these raises should be done, but I would just like, if you can come back to the next meeting, I would have a definite answer for you.
Okay.
Okay?
So, just to be clear, it's the issues that obviously, I guess, I'm in so, the fire training rate, that's at issue, I suppose we could say. So the fire watch rate and the fire officer rate are not, those are also out in the open, and the detail rate. And then EMT on call, that went up 13 cents, I think.
I mean, the
So-
EMT is paid for by,
But fire's paid out of my budget, and the fire's
Okay.
also within the same operating budget. I'm just saying, if, I don't know, do we wanna clarify, we at least accept some of the rates, or are we gonna just say no?
well, I might be open to accept the rates that the town's not paying for.
Well, I think
That's
at
not
this
coming
point,
out
we
of-
need to at least accept some of them. Because,
so these didn't, none of these were gone over during the finance committee stuff this past year?
no, the town has not operated in the best practices in the past. We did not have a fire watch detail account, but we've had a fire watch rate for a number of years. We have no EMS detail account. I've asked the accountant for them. He did establish this. A lot of this stuff is going back, we're trying to clean up things that are general accounting things that have been going on over the years. Every time we turn around, there's something new we're all trying to solve here. And I just, this is one of those things. The fact that these gentlemen were still so low compared to others was kind of a shocker. And so, we can move on, because I know you have
Yeah,
a
but
lot
I've
of
also
meetings.
had, yeah, other people come in and say, well, the police officers are making less than this person, and they're going, so it's just like the cycle already, where,
Let's move on.
Well, no, let's go,
I'd like to take, I was hoping to say, can we take it under advisement and meet again, but then the motion came up, so, whatever works.
well, I think to Stephen's point, if the majority of the board's willing to, which again gets passed on to whoever we're
It's not
protecting, the fire watch, firefighter, the EMT detail, because we get compensated for
And the
that,
fire
we bill
officer,
for that, and the
fire
fire
watch, yeah,
officer,
those-
then
those two-
let's
those three
knock those
categories.
three out. And then we'll just have to worry about the firefighter training.
And on
Right.
call, any ambulance on call, we have to determine where that stands
Yeah.
to it, I think, because that's how.
It might be easier to discuss it all at once, I would think. I don't,
Okay,
call.
I'll be back.
your call.
No, it's fine, I come back. All right, if you want to turn your packet to the August 1, 2016 document.
Yeah.
So, just to summarize, it sounds like you probably already also have that document, but I put it in your packet that I prepared. So August 1, 2016, obviously, I think it's pretty, it's been discussed numerous times about ethics and conflict of interest and things like that, and I've jumped through a lot of hoops. When I was appointed fire chief, we did just consult town council. Have it may, he did forward some stuff to the ethics commission. There was a document, but I actually and truthfully never had a lot of discussion with him or any prior to it going. It went to ethics commission, it came back, and there really wasn't a lot of room for further discussion at that point, even though I did attempt. In the discussion, in the decision that, or the summary that went to the ethics commission from town council, he cited an Oaks Bluffs case, which it's a case in Oaks Bluffs where there was an EMS director who then became a fire chief, and in the process, he did there was a couple ethics disclosures, but in the process, he also ended up hiring and promoting a brother, a wife, things like that. So the ethics commission actually went in there. There was two disclosures. The ethics commission actually went in, did a review, gave them a letter, and said, "Hey, this is what happened, went wrong, and this is what was right." And this is the case the town council cited. So, in quick summary, the case town council cited actually said, in the long and short, said that sure, the fire chief should not have any part in having any promotional, or hiring of family members with financial interest. But in true case, in small towns and in the fire service, and when there is transparency, it is understood that the fire chief has to do direct supervision at times and can process the payroll. Payroll is the issue that comes at hand here. Right now, I've been, up until, a while ago, I was doing payroll, and I was having to seek out Deputy Chief Bardwell for a signature. Well, Deputy Chief Bardwell runs a business, and it's not always in town. And we were having 5 a.m. visits, we were having Sunday evening visits, just so I can get a signature. Right. And the reality is that he was having to sign because the perceived concern that there was conflict with the pay slips, the time slips, and the paying of my sister. Interestingly enough, those are all, 98% of those times are EMS calls. Deputy Bardwell's not an EMT. He does not get ambulance pages. He doesn't get ambulance documents. He doesn't actually have privy to ambulance documents because of HIPAA regulations. So in fact, we've been asking Deputy Bardwell to sign something that he has really little knowledge of, except he maybe saw the ambulance go by with her in it. Right. So in conforming with the Ethics Commission and Conflict of Interest regulations, in August 1st, 2016, I prepared this document and submitted to the town as disclosure, basically saying, hey, this is what needs to happen, this is everything that I've looked at, all the research I did, which is a fair amount, says, hey, this is the document, this is who it involves, this is what goes on. I don't make promotional decisions involving family members. Deputy Bardwell heads up all of that. Do I make final appointments? Yes, under the law, I have to make final appointments. Deputy Bardwell submits a letter. My final appointment letter is stapled to his letter of recommendation in order to comply with the law in hiring and firing of firefighters, which is under, Chapter 48, Section 42. So we've developed a system. There is a system. It is very transparent. Ambulance pay logs time slips are all public record and are all very available and are submitted with the payroll. If there was an audit, if say a member of the select board, town administrator wanted to audit it, they can actually are privy to looking at ambulance trip records, which also have signatures on them. They're a significant record. So I submitted this in August 1st of 2016, and the board was to take it up at that time. I did talk to the town administrator about this, and she felt it got tabled. I read the select board minutes from August 16 through January 1st of 17. It never got taken up and tabled. Yeah. I'm asking the board to take this up.
So, yeah, that's fair.
Disclosure.
So the reason that you're here this evening and presented us with the documentation and the background information is simply to basically be upfront, transparent, and say, sometimes I'm going to have to sign the payroll sheets that my family members have submitted timesheets for. Yeah. I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever.
It's a very open process. There's not, it's outlined in the letter. Training is very open to everyone.
It happens it happens in big cities. I was on the school committee in Holyoke, and I had a sister that was a teacher at the time. I mean, you just,
So I've included in this, there's obviously Mr. Brackett, Attorney Brackett's summary, which he cites that case.
Yep.
And then what I did is I pulled up some stuff like at the fiscal year annual report for that Ethics Commission, where they talked about it, another summary report from 2015, where they summarized the case, and then some of the news articles, which just obviously are summaries of
Right.
the situation around it. You know, basically, it's time and effort, and it's sometimes, and it's not really logical
Right.
to continue the process of
Right.
chasing down Deputy Chief Bardwell. And so I present it to the board, and if this is obviously disclosure, I give this to you, we then, you know, we forward this on,
Yep.
and we record this. This is how, actually, this is exactly the same, very similar document that was actually used in the Oaks Bluff case when he became, everyone comes into compliance there in 2013, I believe.
I would think this happens often in
It
small
does.
towns. I mean,
And we're
with all
actually-
sorts of different departments,
Yeah.
not just,
Yeah.
you know, fire.
So, and it does, this is not an oddity.
Yeah.
And it's very transparent.
All right.
Everything's open.
I feel you're in compliance with everything, so I don't see an issue.
Is that a motion?
Actually, I had a question.
Yeah. Why don't we make the motion, then you can, under discussion,
Sounds good to me.
if there is a motion.
I'll make a motion. We accept this.
All right, I'll second the motion to allow Chief Gahn to sign off on the pay slips
Yeah, so
when necessary. All right,
Disclosure.
okay. Is there any discussion?
Just questions.
Yeah.
I read through the case law earlier, and it talked about that it was the conflict they thought was the hiring and the supervision, not the payroll, and it said the Board of Selectmen decided on the payroll, and I don't have any issue with that, but
What are you talking about?
you cited the Oaks Bluffs case.
Right, yes.
That was based on, the conflict was the hiring and supervision, not the payroll, it
Right.
says.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
the
the payroll
final-
was a separate
yes.
thing that says their Board of Selectmen decided on, like today, same as today.
Yeah, the letter,
Okay.
his letter summarized it, yeah. But he
and
can
it-
do
when
hiring, and he can do supervision and payroll, because it's unavoidable. But he cannot hire, fire, or promote.
And my only question, well, I think it's two questions, because I want to understand everything, obviously I'm new, okay?
Yeah.
This is how it was done with Chief Belden, right, with his son?
Absolutely.
He
And
had,
I did
he
note
had
that a
it,
little
he had Deputy Bardwell sign all his
No,
things.
Chief Belden signed himself.
Really, I asked him the other day, and he said
Yeah,
Jonathan
for
Bardwell
about a
signed.
year and a half, and then it got stopped, and then,
Okay, because when I got it, I asked him, because I ran into him, but,
and in all honesty,
Yeah.
he did not go through any type of scrutiny that I've been put through by the people in this town concerning this issue.
okay. And my only other question was, someone had mentioned earlier, and I don't know, and maybe someone else can speak, or maybe you know, did the town council say that they suggested you didn't? That would be my only,
Town council actually never spoke to me. We asked him for a thing, he emailed me a document, I expected a phone call. Instead, he forwarded the document to the Ethics Commission. I've actually never had a physical conversation with him about it. I would have expected that if he looked further in the Oaks Bluffs case, he would have seen that the Oaks Bluffs case actually finally settled with the allowance of payroll and direct supervision, which is unavoidable, and not promotion, firing, and hiring, which is obviously very
He
reasonable.
did include, council did include this with his letter, this case law.
Yeah, but he
forwarded this.
didn't take out those details. He actually leaned the other way. He cited a case and
Right.
then leaned the other way. So basically, the case he cited didn't actually match what he was talking about, but that's obviously here nor there.
okay, thanks. Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Did you have anything else, Ed? Ed, did you have any other questions for Stephen on this matter?
No, I'm good.
All right, so motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I had, so I'll be
Thanks,
back in another
Stephen.
month.
Why don't you check your calendar, and we'll check with the
Yeah.
Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen so we can get together and wrap
Sure,
this
we can all talk about it, absolutely.
salaries up. Thank you. All righty.
We're running a
Let's-
little behind. Can we
Yep.
take up the Hampshire Council of Governments?
We certainly can.
6:15?
Oh, yes, sorry. Good thing we have 4 seats tonight. Hi, how are you? Sure. We love stuff.
We got stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Good to see you again.
I'm also on the docket here for 6:30. So we're not even gonna worry about dockets. We'll get through it.
Okay, so what we have next, HCOG, or Hampshire Council of Governments, is here this evening with some representatives from HCOG and some, what's the right phrase? Townspeople, but users of the energy,
Actually, supplying the energy.
supplying the energy.
That
Okay,
they're looking to purchase.
okay, thank you.
How's that?
That's perfect. So now that I messed that up, I'll put it back on you guys.
Okay. Well, you want to start or shall I? Okay. So, is it okay to stand?
You, whatever makes you comfortable.
Thank you, right.
they sit.
You have
Oh.
to sit because you're on
Is it
camera.
okay to sit? So, the Hampshire Council of Governments, I'm sure you're familiar with this. We've been your power supplier for a while. Thank you very much for your business, by the way. We have been expanding our product line into an exciting new area of net metering credits. Net metering credits are a way of participating in renewable energy and then transferring the savings of participating in that project onto your electric bill and saving money. A large number of the projects are geared toward municipalities because they have a capacity to take in a larger, portion of a project than say a business, for example. The utility regulations restrict a business to a certain size. One of those projects is the Belden Farm right here in Hatfield. And I guess I should pass it off to Daryl to discuss that. You can tell them what you guys are doing there and then.
Well, if you don't mind, I think I'm gonna
Yeah,
explain a
no,
little bit
yeah,
more.
you go right ahead.
Okay, so my name is Sinead Coleman. I'm the Director of Energy Operations at Hampshire Council of Governments. So within Hampshire Council of Governments, we are a service organization, and we support ourselves with fee-for-service services. And one of those is Hampshire Power. So Hampshire Power is Massachusetts' only nonprofit based energy supplier. And one of these programs, yes, is the net metering program, where we work with farms such as the Belden Farms, and another farm down in Granville called Rockwood, where they are producing a lot of power from their anaerobic digesters. We're looking for off-takers from those. Those are municipalities. So down in Granville, we're already working with the town of Granville and a few other communities in that area in Eversource territory. And we're looking now for off-takers here in Hatfield. I've spoken before to you folks about, just in this brief introduction of what anaerobic digestion is. And if you have any questions on that, obviously Daryl and I can both answer that. You folks have been customers of ours for Hampshire Power since 2011. So yes, we thank you for that. So we've already, we know how much the municipal buildings use, and we also know how much the schools use in power, and we know that we can give you folks an upfront 15% savings on your electricity. So with that is, I can go into more questions on it if you want to go into more detail, but I was hoping that today we can kind of go over a little bit of how this program is going to be going forward, and the next step would be signing a letter of intent, which means that you folks are interested in having the municipal buildings, which are about, I think it's
600,000 change.
about 600,000.
Kilowatt hours per year.
Yeah, and I'll direct you to the page in your nice little handout, which is the second to the last page, because I'm kind of skipping around. But the town of Hatfield has 19 accounts. You have an annual usage of a little over 600,000 kilowatt hours a year. You would be allotted 69.5 kW from the project, which would be about 15% savings in your electricity bill. I think when I was here last, I did show you savings and a dollar amount. I'm happy to go through that again. And then will be going to the Hatfield schools, which I think is a different process to talk about them coming on board. So without further ado, can you guys give a brief background of the farm itself?
Sure. Feels a little strange being on this side of the, microphone. So Lucinda and I are here. I apologize, Jackson isn't here. Someone has to actually.
He's sneaking the back.
He's in the back, he's hiding. Luther Belden Farm. Jackson is actually the 13th generation on our farm. We are a dairy farm. We're milking right now 150 animals. We will soon be milking about 180 cows. Actually, if anyone's driven by the farm, you can see that we have a brand new barn that,
The voluntary milking system, otherwise called milking robots.
milking robots.
So the cows get to choose when they want to be milked rather than our choosing. It's 4 a.m., 4 p.m. So
Yes.
pretty cool stuff.
Right.
Great video on it.
So as part of our transition to the next generation and moving forward, one of the things we're looking at is anaerobic digestion. And so we are going to be building a digester, and what that is it's going to take all the manure. We make a lot of milk every year, but the little hidden fact is we make a lot of mess, a lot of manure. So it takes all that manure, and we will also be buying some food waste that supplements that. And that goes into a tank and actually produces methane gas. Methane gas then runs a generator that produces electricity that will keep our farm going, but also we'll have surplus electricity that we then sell to the grid that Hampshire Power is willing to buy. Some of the other side benefits is that we will get heat off the motor that will heat our buildings, heat our houses, heat our hot water, which we use a lot of that. And then the digestate, that product which is used after it's digested, is then used for fertilizer on our field, which is actually a little bit more stable than the manure we currently use. So,
Much less odor, which is appealing to our neighbors.
right. That's one of the big points for us is we would like to be able to be in business for another generation, and it's nice to keep our odor down a little bit, and this will go forward to doing that.
I also just want to say that one of the benefits of an anaerobic digester over, say, solar power is it's not conditional on the cloud
Right.
cover. It's a constant. Year-round, we produce the same amount of electricity, so that stable addition to the grid is helpful for people who are buying.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. I mean, the whole process and concept is cool.
It is very similar to your community shared solar. Sorry. So it is very similar to that. The big difference and why Hampshire Council of Governments thinks it's very important to bring this to municipalities is because of that, because of what Lucinda said. It's stable every day and every year it's going to be producing the same amount. Unfortunately, when we also manage community solar projects, but those are very seasonal, and we can't tell somebody here and there how much it's going to be producing, and if we have, I don't know, if the sun decides to go away, then we're not going to be producing any power. Okay. So yes, as I said, the next step of this is signing a letter of intent. So that just basically says that the town buildings are interested in purchasing their power from this program, and the projects and the credits are going to start flowing in early 2018. So that's when you'd start seeing the that 15% savings. Also, coming up a little bit sooner, is we are looking to do a tour of the farm in October. So once you decide that this is going to be something that you folks are going to do, you can actually start seeing where the power is gonna start flowing from in about the springtime. Yep.
Great.
Other
Do you have any
Did-
questions?
Ed, did you have any
I
particular
mean, I think it's
questions?
great, it's just that we're already in a process of some other agreements, are we not?
Right, that's separate from this. It doesn't impact this.
It doesn't impact us, okay. That's good. Okay.
I guess my only question is your usage going to be changing over the next, just say, 5 years? So are you adding any, I don't know if you guys are adding a building.
Significant
or-
development
Or are
to
you
that
guys?
municipal building? No.
Using like, or putting a solar array on any buildings or anything like that?
No.
No, okay, so that
No.
doesn't change anything.
Do you have any other projects like this in the works, or are they the first, or?
So yes, we have another project in Granville, similar sized, also, I think it's a 13th generation dairy farm as well. And there are other there are all other anaerobic digesters across the Commonwealth. There's not really that many, but there is another in Ashfield that we're working with as well. So this is tried and true.
So there are digesters on dairy farms in Rutland, Mass. was the first, and then Hadley, Mass. Barstow's have one. Melnick's up in Barway Farm up in Deerfield.
Just
Theirs is, they have just started. Arrogie's up in Sheffield, Mass. have a digester. So we would be I can't even, I lost
Fifth or
count.
sixth.
Fifth or sixth farm in the Commonwealth that would be using this technology.
Do you have any hazardous waste concerns? I mean, with the methane gas, is that is it stable, how stable is, I don't think we still have the fire chief here too, but you run the fire department, yeah, so is that an issue at all? Like a
No.
methane gas thing? you know?
The farm produces methane right now.
Anyway, right, but not contained,
We're just
not
containing
contained.
it.
Well,
And
that's,
this
yeah,
will
that's what I
actually
meant.
be
Containing it
better.
made a difference in the gas.
There'll be a flame, right?
They're,
So public education, that's all it is, there's no risk.
Yep.
There's no risk compared to anything else, you're not a mandated tier 2 reporter. But there'll be the flame, it'll be public education and entertaining at
Right.
some point.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're happy to.
It's-
yeah.
The city of Westfield's been doing it for years at their plant, at their waste,
So when are you open for tours?
What's that?
When are you open for the tours?
We're hoping for October. I
Really?
think that's probably when we're gonna start breaking ground.
A lot of things need to happen.
Yes.
So
Right.
we're on the track of getting all these things to fall into place, and hopefully that's, that's our plan.
Yep, yeah.
Does,
Worst case scenario, the project wouldn't start until the spring. But our hope is that we start in a couple weeks, and by mid-November, we would have the bladder on the actual digester, and so, but.
does would the letter of intent, or should we actually move forward with the agreement? Is it a termed agreement? Is it a contract for so many months, years, et cetera?
Yes, so it is a 10-year agreement.
10-year.
However, every year, you can change that allotment. You can bring it all the way down to 0, so therefore you can get out of the agreement.
Yeah.
But also, us as your energy supplier,
Provider.
we'd also make sure that allotment fits you. So you can always change it according to your energy
Okay.
usage and how energy efficient you become.
If in 5 years' time, the town did decide to build, say, a solar array or something like that, and so how many net metering credits you needed went down, at your annual review, you'd be able to say, by this time next year, we're not gonna need these, so we wanna drop down to a different level, for example.
Okay.
By the same token, if someone else backs out and there's extra capacity and the town has a need for it, if demand for electricity has grown in the town, we may come to you and say, hey, we have this allotment that this town over here no longer is using. Do you have an interest in adding that to your portfolio?
Okay. Good, thank you. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't, thanks.
Did you have any other
Sounds
questions?
interesting.
No, I just commend you for
That's
going
great.
forth with a project like this. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Jackson.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jeff.
Was there anything else you wanted to comment on? Sinead,
No,
or
I mean,
Steve?
I just
Okay.
wanted to know what the, you have, I can send you another letter of intent. I just want to know what the next kind of step is here, like who should I be working with?
With Town Administrator Marlene Wachonsky.
Okay.
So we'll follow up again at the board's next meeting and have a discussion and sign the letter of intent if that's the board's wishes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we be at that meeting, or what's your choice?
First Wednesday in September. Daryl, it's up to you. We'll be here.
Well, I didn't just.
I don't know that
Yeah,
we would have any
of
additional questions, to
yeah,
be
that-
honest
that
with
would be
you.
my-
I
The
figured
board-
that's why.
The board
but-
will be meeting August 16th, maybe a short meeting. However, unless the board objects, I can move it to September.
I'm not sure how the board members are going to be here August 16th.
Right.
course. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, so
We're
it's gonna be
good.
the 1st of
I'll be
September,
running, yeah.
Thank you.
or right down the street.
Great.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much.
Welcome.
And congratulations
Good luck.
Yeah.
to the Williams, and Jackson way in the back, we saw you. Good job.
So Justin Cole is
Yeah.
here.
We'll continue with our going out of order. All right.
You can't
Daryl's
count,
staying,
can you?
right? Thank you. Okay. So we're going to continue to go out of order because when you have somebody come at a particular time and something else runs over, you try to get back on schedule and not keep people longer than they need to be here. So we actually are going to have a financial management review along with the Finance Committee and the Board of Assessors. Town Treasurer and Collector's here. I hope I didn't miss any, as Town Clerk's here too. But basically, we're going to have an overview of financial management review with Justin Cole, who's a representative of Bay State Municipal Accounting Group. Justin and his team have come in, have been in Town Hall and working with our financial team probably since April or May, is that about right? We asked them to come in and basically do a review and an overview of Town Hall and the financial operation of Town Hall and see where improvements could be made, where suggestions could be made for improvements, give ideas. Justin and Bay State have a background in municipal government finance. So we're fortunate to have them on our team. They continue to work with us now. But we did ask, because there's been some questions and we haven't had an opportunity prior to today to get the overview of the report, as well as have all the various players from the different departments here at the same time. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So Justin, thanks for being here. And I guess I'll turn it over to Justin, unless you had anything you wanted to add, Marlene?
No,
or
I
you're
don't.
good?
I'm
So,
all set.
All right,
There
thank you,
you go.
Mr. Chair.
Yes?
So my name is Justin Cole, I'm from Bay State Municipal Accounting Group. We were engaged to do a review of financial operations here at the Town Hall. That involved speaking with the assessors, the treasurer, the collector, and the town accountant. We focused on that they self-identified in the initial meeting in terms of communications, workflow, timeliness. And then from there, we spoke to them individually to try to really hash out where each department head felt a lot of the issues may lay. Generally, and I won't read through the entire report, I'm sure you've all taken a look at it. I mean, it generally boiled down to three main areas. You've had a turnover of staff in the last few years that have led to newer staff members with less institutional knowledge. Those newer staff members, in some cases, don't always also have a deep background in municipal finance, and so there's a training and professional development element, and then there's a communication and just homogeneous financial team element that is missing. So from there, the real notable parts come down to, as I said, it's a newer staff, there's some additional professional development, training. There needs to be a review of policies and procedures, expectations between the departments for, not only common transactions, but, also some more specialized transactions, such as setting the tax rate, preparing the budget on an annual basis, closing the books, and getting all of the year-end certifications. We looked in particular at the treasurer collector's office. So you have an elected collector position, an elected treasurer position, both currently being held by a single employee. The way it looks that has been structured over the years, is that it's been held by two different people. And so having a single person in that role provides a little bit of a logistical challenge. In addition to that, the staffing level in the treasurer's collector's office is on the low side for the volume of work, most specifically payroll and related to your local school district, and the level of work that comes with those items. So, as outlined in the report, one of the things that should really be looked at is how that office is staffed, what the responsibilities of the staff members in that office are, and how that may or may not affect, transactional work with other departments. From there, really our recommendations just go on to say, there needs to be a strong management involvement. So that's, from you four folks on the select board and the finance committee, and understanding, what the transactional cycles of the financials are, what the expectations of the deliverables of the department are, and, what to look for when things start to either slow down or that you feel that the expectations of those offices are not being met. A lot of times, that has to do with the time of year it is. For example, this example we always cite is, we expect, things like cash reconciliations and receivable reconciliations to slow down when tax bills are due. There's only so many resources to go around. And so, being aware of what the financial cycles are and what the expectations of the employees within the financial departments is important to understanding, the results that you're seeing in those departments. And so we would recommend also a level of professional development for, the management staff as well. The Department of Revenue offers several key courses for local municipal officials. That would be fantastic for any of you to attend, and they're very informational in terms of what the financial offices do and what you should be able to expect out of the offices. But really just enhancing communications in town hall and, making sure that, both management and the employees stay on the same page is really, key to, next steps in terms of turning things around.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a bunch of questions.
All right, well, so first, and that was a very high-level overview, but I think the gist, we've gotten the gist of, professional development, better communication with the various departments. And I think one thing you mentioned that stood out for me, and now that the folks in place have been through it a couple times, hopefully it's the whole timing thing, what's due when, and when to concentrate on those particular tasks, right? So I'm hoping that, we've gone through a couple of cycles now with the current staff, and with your assistance over the last couple of months, I'm hoping that now we know at this time of year, this is what to expect, this is what's going to happen. This time of year, expect this to happen. So I'm hoping that part of it, the timing issue, will sort of take care of itself. That's one thing. But professional development in any job, any role, any responsibility is very, very important. And things are always changing, and you've got to be trained, and you've got to be up to date on the most recent information that's available. So, you want to, Ed, you want to go first?
I want to get back to the staffing issue. Part of the hope of this report was to help us determine how our offices should be staffed. So do you have any idea on, say, the treasurer's collector's office, what the staffing should be based on after you've now seen our town?
Right.
How many people should we have in there?
So, I'm going to say it depends. And so I think the first thing that you guys really need to look at is the role of the treasurer collector as it currently stands versus, maybe in a slightly different role. So as I said, right now you have it set up so that it's supposed to be a 25-hour-a-week position for the collector and a 25-hour-a-week position for the treasurer, right? And so.
Well, 25 and 30, I believe.
25 and 30. And so, having two different people working part-time is a different amount of workload than having one person working 55 hours a week, right? So for example, over the long haul. So one of the recommendations that, we always make, and we know the Department of Revenue pushes it, is that the treasurer collector be a single consolidated position. That's a professional 40-hour-a-week position that is appointed by the board. And so we can look at it one of two different ways. So if we look at it the way it stands right now, where the treasurer and the collector should be separate people, then I would say that you're looking at a minimum of a additional part-time person.
So are we saying you're recommending if we make the treasurer's collector's office into one individual, as they're doing throughout the state, then you would have an addition to the treasurer collector, one additional person?
Correct. If you keep it as it's currently separated with a separate person for the collector and a separate person for the treasurer, you're talking probably a part-time person addition at the administrative level. If you do a single combined treasurer collector 40-hour-a-week position, that's probably more in the neighborhood of one more full-time person. Basically, for an office your size with a local school, right, so that's the really important determining factor here. That office should be between 2.5 and 3 people to be well-staffed. If you did not have a local school component, I would say 2 people easily. But with your local school component, I would say it's 2.5 or 3 people.
So one treasurer collector 40 hours and one full-time staff 40 hours?
Plus a payroll person.
Plus a payroll person, so you're actually talking 3 people.
Right.
So you're talking 3 people, 40, 40, 40, right?
You might not need a full 40-hour-a-week person, for the administrative level. But you're talking at least 2 40-hour-a-week people, and then it's really hard to determine what the workload of the other person is. So, for example, right now there's some challenges that were inherited by the office, that the office is working through, trying to determine what the actual workload of the office is, if everything is caught up and everything is running smoothly, and we've implemented some of these other policies and procedures that we've outlined. It's really hard to say until some of those items are, crossed off the list, what that staffing level is. What we've outlined in the report is that it's probably at least a, 19-hour-a-week person. Realistically, that's probably more like a 25 or 30-hour-a-week person. But it's, like I said, you're shooting for probably at least 2.5 people, 2.5 FTEs in that office, probably a little bit more.
Can I ask a quick follow-up to it?
Yeah.
So compared to your report, so right now I'm hearing the treasurer position, the collector position, and then the payroll position. It sounds like a big portion of the time is spent just dealing with daily transactions. And so in your report, you really call for a sort of counter person position do you imagine in this three-person structure, the work would just be divided differently, or would you still see the need for like a counter person who's sort of dealing with people as they're coming into the door?
So I think the work would be distributed a little bit differently. So if you look at, say, a three-person office with a combined treasurer collector, the treasurer collector is a management position, right? And so they have a 40-hour a week that's less transactional, and then you have a person who is more payroll oriented, and then you're basically left with a counter person, right? So you're left with somebody who's covering the phones, covering the office, covering lunch, more transactional based, right? And so the theoretical setup of the office is, in a 40-hour week, given your size, if you have a counter person, they can cover the window, they can cover the phone, they can get everything posted in a day and get it to the bank that same day, right? So you're able to close the transactional cycle on a daily basis, rather than carrying it down the line. That frees up, the more payroll function, to focus on, payroll issues, which again, while you have a school, you have challenges such as mass teachers retirement, which is an entire category of transactional work in itself that is extremely time consuming. And it leaves your treasurer collector to focus on the more management issues, right? Like, reviewing reconciliation, making sure that the tax title process is happening and that we're maximizing, collections in the town. That more professional grade that you would expect out of a department head. Less transactional, more overall, management, coordinating with other department heads, those sorts of items.
Well, you did say that some of the departments weren't sure of their procedures or responsibilities with other departments or something like that, right? I mean, you were saying, can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So, in talking to the assessors, the treasurer collector's office, and the town accountant's office, they were all acutely aware of what their own offices were responsible for, but it seemed that became less clear what the other offices were responsible for. So, for example, the assessors know how to do everything in their own office. What happens when a transaction goes to the collector's office, or what happens when it goes to the town accountant's office was less clear, right? And so those pieces of information become very important in this, theoretical, more homogeneous financial department. So, for example, if the assessors grant motor vehicle abatement, for example, right? The next step for that goes to the collector's office, and then the next step after that, it goes to the accountant's office, right? And so everyone needs to understand that everyone touches this financial transaction down the line, right? And so after you're done with it, you should be aware of where it goes and what the end result is, so that there's not a situation where information is misrouted, or if there needs to be some kind of follow-up item to know where that transaction is on its pipeline.
Would a flow chart help?
You could flow chart every single thing that all of them do, right? It's, that part boils down to the professional development part of it as well, right? Not living in your office, but being acutely aware of, what piece of the puzzle, how the different pieces of the puzzle fit together, and, how the overall financial transaction works, right? There's nothing in town hall that is touched by one person, right? Every invoice that gets paid, every payroll that gets processed, it's touched by how many people, in town as it makes its way down the line. Most of that ends with you folks signing the warrant and things like that. Everybody should be aware of how these things work, and, if there is a breakdown someplace, being able to identify, where did it break down and why did it break down, and then what's our policy and procedure and workflow, and how do we fix it so the breakdown doesn't happen again.
And how do we resolve it quickly?
Right.
You want to say anything?
Not right now. No, do you have any more?
Do you feel,
Yes, some
with-
more,
I was just trying to
yeah.
go back and.
No, I appreciate
No.
it. I don't know.
since you've been
Yeah.
present,
He's
you
asking
know,
the same
helping, working with the departments, do you feel that we're making headway, that everybody's sort of becoming more of a team, learning how the processes work, or?
I would say it's a work in progress. Definitely, I feel like people are more aware of, what the issues are and what is required. We've been having, a weekly conference call process to, identify, what's expected, what everybody's working on, what the challenges are. I've been having a separate weekly conference call with the town accountant to walk through, year-end transactional cycles. And again, he and I have been working on this concept of, this is where the information comes from, this is, who needs to be in the loop about these things, and starting that, educational process and professional development process. So there's still a lot more work to go. You're certainly better off, I believe, than you were, but it's a process. The next step is, we need to really dig into, for any particular financial transaction, well, what is the workflow? Is it documented? And again, is everybody aware of what the expectations are and how long these transaction cycles should take? And, there's a lot more work to do with it. But I would say that, yeah, you're definitely heading, in a better direction.
Do you feel that the reconciliation is the biggest headache that our departments are dealing with, or is there another area that's the biggest headache for our departments to deal with?
So right now, the reconciliation is the prime focus. I would say that in any town, not just yours, the reconciliation is generally the hardest part of the job, because again, it requires a coordination of all the departments. It requires everyone to work together as a team, in a timely manner. And given the backlog and the challenges that, both the treasurer-collector department inherited and the town accountant inherited, I think one of the real breakdowns in communication and workflow has been trying to balance ongoing day-to-day transactional work and addressing the backlog. And, moving forward, as long as everybody can work together and get on the same page, again, I think we continue to move in the right direction.
So once we do the backlog, then what else would we need to do for our departments? Will we need to do some more staffing then, once we get caught up? Or?
So, I think the issue of the staffing isn't when you get caught up. The issue of the staffing is, that's a problem today. It's been a problem for years, right? And so I think one of the things that you folks need to think about in terms of, what is the game plan to get these things resolved is, really the issue of the staffing and the organizational structure of the financial department. So not even just, one department necessarily, just the entire financial department, because, we can assist the town with making through the FY17 backlog, but at the same time, FY18 is off to the races as well, right? And so to prevent, a continued cycle of, falling behind due to staffing issues, I think the staffing issue needs to be discussed,
So
amongst
would
management.
your recommend be, once we get caught up and get everything straightened out, then we should be moving towards a 40-hour treasurer collector, and then another 1.5 people to do that office? Is that what you're recommending?
I would recommend that you folks look at it today, in terms of what you want to do with the staffing. It will take a little bit of time to make it through the backlog and to get it caught up. So say it takes till the end of this quarter, for example. Once you get past a certain point in the fiscal year, we're going to start having discussion about getting FY18 caught up. Because again, the staffing is inappropriate today. And so my recommendation, again, to you folks would be to start the discussion on the staffing levels today and to come up with a game plan so that, it's not all the way through the fiscal year, and we sit back here a year from now having, this conversation again.
So right now, your recommendation would be the staffing, if you were to have your choice tomorrow, should be a 40-hour treasurer collector or full-time person, and then another half-time person.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and I think along those lines, it's with roles and responsibilities ironed out as to who's going to do what. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I mean, not for all intents, but we do have one person who happened to win 2 seats, a collector treasurer who is the same person. And we do have the payroll person as well. So it's about hiring, that additional staff to do the counter work, for lack of a better term, or customer service, right? Because a lot of people come in to pay their bills and see people. I've thought along those lines that by having a wide open office like that, that's not conducive to someone being able to just kind of put their head down and sit at the computer and do what they have to do, just because of as people are coming in and saying hi and shooting the breeze, and I get all that. And we want our town to be welcoming and saying hi to people as they come in, but at certain times, if it's going to interrupt the workflow that we as a town need to get done and the financial team has to get done, I think it's an interruption, quite frankly. And that's not necessarily for you to weigh in unless you want to, but I mean, I don't know if we just simply need to put a counter with a window, or put some cubbies in there, for lack of a better term, desk with a little bit of walls around them, to sort of just seclude people to be able to do what we really want them to do, which is the management position of those offices.
Right, and I mean, I would say that, I can tell you from the transactional level of doing the work myself, right? I mean, the work of the reconciliation and the work of the payroll person, it is very sensitive to distraction interruption.
Yeah.
So for example, I mean, between the collector doing the internal collector reconciliation and the treasurer doing the internal treasurer reconciliation, I mean, there's 7 to 10 business days worth of work right there every single month. So 50% of your month is going to be, head down, crunching the numbers, theoretically without distraction, right? So for every person that walks in, and every time the phone rings, you end up in this difficult place where you're working on things where, being interrupted, can literally add hours to the process, right? And so I would say that, then the town accountant has the exact same thing, right? Because the town accountant is working on the other side of all of the exact same reconciliations, right? And so you run into the same sort of situation where, it's probably not a full 2 weeks on the town accountant's side, but, if it's being done, monthly, for both the treasurer's reconciliation and the collector's reconciliation, the town accountant is then looking at another 5 to 7 days of reconciliation, again, where it's, head down, really kind of muscling through this stuff. If you look at the town accountant's office, which, has, a door that can be closed and is relatively, private and secluded versus, the wide open treasurer collector's office, then, I can certainly see where, it would be distracting and, difficult to, get some of this work done. And again, the same thing goes with payroll, I mean, doing the weekly payroll transactional cycle, it's very detail-oriented. Everybody wants to get paid. Nobody wants to get paid the wrong amount of money. And the reality is, you generally only have a few days to get payroll processed, from the time that the timesheets start trickling in until the submission date to get paid that week, right? And so you run into the same sort of thing where every time the phone rings, every time somebody comes in, if the payroll person is the one that has to jump up there, hit the counter, you're losing more time than just what it takes to walk to the counter and back. You're losing the time it takes to remember where you were and maybe take a few steps back, to make sure that everything is error-free and it ties out. So this concept of these higher level, more detail-oriented job types, not having to jump up and down and run all over the office, and having a person who that is their job, right? And so, Mr. Chair, your point about, having some seclusion and then having somebody who can just be the point person coming in, who can meet and greet and, take the time to strike up a conversation, and really be the frontline person, is a great way to go, for that office, even with it being wide open and everything. But again, you do have to redefine what the job responsibilities of the people in the office are, and you are gonna shift around some responsibilities and things like that as part of a restructuring. But again, that's why I'm saying it's not even just about throwing people at the problem, this is part of a larger restructuring, to get the results that you're looking for.
I mean, so since the counter person or customer service person is a position that we're sort of, we're thinking we would have to go in that direction anyway, I do think the sort of privacy, the private working space is an important sort of next consideration. And since it's unrealistic that we're going to do any changes to this building, and would be unreasonable to do any changes to this building to accommodate that, I wonder if we could come up with some sort of creative changes sooner rather than later, once we get the counter person in place. A couple things that come to mind is, could the clerk's office be more of sort of for the assistant clerk and the sort of counter customer service person, and the other one be split into more private spaces for, I don't know, the clerk and the treasurer? Or could one of, maybe like the accountant's office seems, decently spacious, could that be split in some way? So I think there are some options as far as creating that space. I mean, certainly we couldn't look at any sort of physical changes to the space that we just physically changed. But I think the counter person is something that we should try to move on. I'm wondering, what are our options in regards to funding that position at this point?
Well, that's probably a separate topic, but,
Well, I mean, it's an important topic.
that's where
I
we're at. Absolutely, but yeah.
Do we, so essentially, we would have to wait until the next town meeting?
No, well, I think we can have a conversation about it. We're going to have a joint meeting anyways with the police chief. Fire chief, in the next few weeks. We're going to look to have the finance committee and the board of selectmen, so we can have this conversation on this as well.
Regarding the funding for the finance person, for the counter person?
No, with the fire chief about a different topic, but we're going to be
Okay.
looking to meet
Okay.
collectively in the next week or two.
Okay, great, yeah, because it sounds urgent.
Yeah,
May I ask a question?
of course.
You referred several times to communicating to management, and this may be accomplished by a simple Monday morning email between financial staff and management to allow for understanding of individual challenges. Who is management in this case?
Right, so I mean, that's really for you guys to define internally, right? So like, it's generally defined as you guys, Marlene and the board, it's different in different towns, right? And so, either that's, the select board, in their capacity, or a smaller group, maybe that's the chair and the town administrator.
Okay.
So that's really to be defined internally, like who's generally, responsible or has interest of the day-to-day.
I was just going
boots
to
on the
say, and
ground.
have you observed small towns where members of the select board are involved in daily management issues?
So our greatest, probably the most widespread experience that we've had is the, both the select board and the finance committee assigning liaison type people who are responsible for just staying in tune with groups of departments. So for example, the finance department being not one that necessarily has a huge publicly visible product, right? It's mostly an internal function. Having, either somebody from the select board or usually more appropriately, somebody from the finance committee, being just in tune with what's going on, right? So understanding that when it's time to set the tax rate, there are certain things going on, or being more involved when it gets to be budget and capital planning time in terms of understanding, where the town's finances are, and those sorts of things.
So am I, again, being new to the process, am I correct in understanding that that kind of liaison has not yet been identified?
I would say that we haven't identified a particular person as a liaison, as a title. I would say that in the capacity of the town administrator, that Marlene has taken on that role or responsibility to sort of be the liaison, and at least keeps the board, and of course, when we're meeting, if there's questions, to keep the finance committee advised of what's happening.
I mean, the way I've seen it is that, and I know, administrator and manager are defined differently, but I've seen it as Marlene in the sort of management day-to-day role, whether that's the case or not, I don't know, and the liaison between the finance committee and the board of selectmen, pretty much on the daily goings of town hall.
Right, it really boils down to the level of involvement that you folks are all interested in, right? So, I mean, if, for example, the liaison process, kind of works for all departments, right? So you commonly see someone that'll be a liaison, to all the public safety departments, right? Because things that are happening with police and fire, they have things that overlap, and there's some commonality to it. So the same sort of thing with the finance department, right? Understanding what the challenges are that the finance department is facing, but also just having an ear to the ground during those important times, right? So if the finance committee has a discussion about something relative to the budget, there's a point person that can now follow up with the finance department, right? It's not, you're not waiting as an entire group for an answer to come back.
Right.
You're a single point person to say, okay, assessors, what's your take? What's the collector's take? What's the town accountant's take? And and bring that back to the larger group, rather than just maybe sitting and waiting for the information to trickle back to you, right? And so it becomes a little bit more of a engaged, dynamic process. Through the rest of the year, the post-budget until, pre-tax rate, for the finance department, there's probably, that liaison doesn't really necessarily have much to do, but from the time the tax rate gets set all the way through the budget setting process, they're a little bit busier, and so again, it's not even necessarily a recommendation for a particular department or a particular set of departments. We see it in many towns, for all departments, to again really understand the issues that a department is facing and come back to the larger group and and be an advocate and to have a finer grained understanding of the challenges and what's going on and those sorts of things.
I mean, in a way, I think it's unfortunate that we're prohibited in the ways that we are to communicating sort of outside of the meeting, just in that I do think you learn a lot from daily emails going back and forth, where you're able to have the time to review something and then sort of ask a question and have people in the group sort of give feedback. So, I do think we're missing that sort of daily level of involvement because we can't really use email as effectively, and obviously most of us, can't be in town hall on a daily basis. And so in some ways it has become sort of a seasonal type position for the finance committee in the past, and hopefully that's something we're gonna change moving forward as well.
Okay, I didn't know if you were
No, I'm
gonna
sorry.
ask
No,
me
no, no, no,
something or
no,
if
no,
you were ready.
No.
Justin, a question. When you're speaking to professional development, are you speaking, like in the future, everyone needs to do professional development to keep up with all the new municipal changes and the new laws? Are you saying that right now we need professional development for people to effectively do their job?
I would say not to necessarily effectively do their job, but it's definitely to just stay on top of what is changing in the municipal market, right? So for example, this past November, they passed the Municipal Modernization Act, which drastically overhauled really a lot of very commonly used laws that govern how transactions are handled and what goes on, in, we'll just say, again, the finance departments, right? And so being aware of what is in the, it's a 128-page piece of legislation, right? And so understanding what's in there and how that impacts you and how, again, it impacts the other departments that you work with, right? And how, you know, this is how it used to work and this is the way we've always done it, right? And now understanding, well, this is what the new legislation says and this is what I need to update and getting together as a team and understanding how that
Okay,
works,
so
right?
yearly or whatever, as things occur, but nothing, not to catch up on things right now?
No, I mean, I think all the
That
current,
knowledge in there.
you know, staff members are involved in their, you know, Massachusetts Professional Association, so, you know, your Mass Collector Treasurers and all of those, and so that professional development is important, because all of the professional organizations, take care of some of that low-hanging fruit in terms of, you know, law changes and things like that. You know, but, you know, from there are other supplemental things, right? So, you know, for the town accountant, you know, there's the Massachusetts Inspector General's office that holds, you know, procurement training so that, you know, you understand, you know, contract cycles and purchasing cycles and things like that. You know, that's above and beyond what you would ever learn at, you know, the Mass Accountants and Auditors Association, for example, right? So there's that core level of professional development through each office's own professional organization. But then there's also supplemental professional development that's, you know, maybe specific to a department or, you know, a role that somebody's filling.
Right. Okay, thank you.
No, I'm just getting back to what you're saying about combining those two jobs, treasurer and collector. That's a process, because presently our town has both those positions as elected positions. So this is not something that can be done overnight. And
Right, and, you know, the experiences in other towns, you know, it's a challenge, right? So even if you were to keep them as two separate positions, even the step of moving them from elected to appointed without combining them, you know, that's a challenge for many municipalities, right? And so, taking the step to combine that, you know, to make them appointed and combine them is no small feat, right? And so that's one of those things that, again, you know, you folks as management just need to be aware of is, you know, that will need to go to town meeting, right? And nobody can really
Been there,
dictate-
done that
right,
3
how-
times.
Right, how that process is gonna fall, you know, so you have a situation today, right? And so, the best advice I can give is, you know, we can work with the situation today, you know, and where you have a single employee holding both positions as it is, you know, you can do a hybrid solution that is very similar to what we're talking about, right? I mean, so we can still do this one person, 40-hour-a-week treasurer collector, and this one person who's a payroll, and then this counter person. And that's still a feasible solution for today, you know, with the long-term goal of, you know, seeing what can be done about the elected versus appointed, or separate positions versus combined.
because right now we have one treasurer collector, 55 hours, one full-time person payroll, 40 hours. So we're missing that, no?
35.
35. So we're still missing a half, right?
At least,
At least.
At least.
right.
Laura Lee, did you want to say
I
something?
did.
Saw your
I
hand
just
up.
wanted to say that the modern bill that was just passed, we're able to combine the treasurer and collector into one position without making it appointed. So it can still be an elected position. So I would recommend, I think something like that could certainly pass at the annual town meeting or special town meeting. So we could approach this in 2 steps. So the positions can be combined into one and still be elected, and you can deal with combining them and then appointing them separately. Because I think, you know, the appointment tends to be maybe what's hanging it up. I don't think people would necessarily be opposed to combining them. So they can now be combined without being appointed and remain elected.
Provided the town votes for it.
Correct, but what I'm saying is before, they had to be appointed in order to be combined. The new law that just passed now allows them to be combined and still elected.
Right, okay.
Although at the beginning of your presentation, one thing that I heard that you said, and what I read into it a little bit too, is you mentioned that a single person in those roles creates a logistical challenge. And what I thought you were saying was that, you know, when it's an elected position, you know, you're not going to have someone necessarily, you know, who has the skill set, a specific skill set for that. And so And that way, you know, maybe it would need to be 2 people if you were going to do it, or if you were going to appoint it, a single person might be okay. Is that essentially what you were indicating?
Right, so I mean, you run into some challenges, right? And so, so with elected positions, right, I mean, you know, so currently, you know, your collector has a lot of collector experience, is rock solid, you know, but if she didn't want to run for collector again, anybody could be collector, right? And so the elected positions, well, I fully appreciate, you know, the power of the people to put somebody into a position, right? I mean, you don't always get somebody who, you know, has the background, you know, or the skill set to do it successfully, right? And so I think as far as, you know, when I look back to the conversations that, you know, we've had with the Department of Revenue, and even at what they outlined, the Department of Revenue outlined in their 2012 report to the town, which is, you know, there are some positions that you generally have better luck finding somebody who will be, you know, stable and a long-term employee if it is not elected, right? And so, with that said, you know, there are the challenges. I mean, there are pros and cons to, you know, elected versus appointed or single versus combined, right? And so, that's part of what needs to be really worked out in, you know, the job duties of what the position ends up being, right, and what the expectations are, you know, and so a combined treasurer-collector, whether it's appointed or elected, right, has a very different, you know, job duties, expectations than if they were individual or if they were appointed versus elected, right? So there's a lot going on there, right? And so generally speaking, you know, what we say is, you know, elected positions are just more risky, right? And so when you have an appointed person, you know, there's a vetting process, you know, you're hiring somebody based on, you know, resume, skill set, experience. Elected, it's just a crapshoot, right? And you get what you get, and that's all there is to it, you know? And so, where the financial positions in town dictate everything that you folks do, right? So without, you know, correct, accurate, timely, efficient financial data, your hands are tied in terms of really doing much of anything, right? And so, looking at the, you know, the town accountant and the assessor and the treasurer collector, generally speaking, appointed, you know, is less risky, more stable, and set you up for a more sustainable position in the long run.
Mike?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. One from the standpoint of a taxpayer, interested taxpayer, community member, and another from the standpoint of having years of experience overseeing financial systems. And with all due respect, I have not seen the proposal that the state provided, nor have I seen the report, nor have I seen the deliverables that were expected from Justin, either tonight or at some point. But I do admit that I have a concern when I guess my expectations were different than what I've just heard tonight. When our consultant comes in and basically says the selectmen have to develop the game plan going forward. And you know, I have a concern about that because my expectation was, when I heard that this was all going on, is that Justin was going to come up with a recommended plan for addressing this financial problem, ongoing problems that we've had here in the town for quite some time. And quite frankly, you know, what I heard tonight is, it's like deja vu. It's what we've heard for the last several years from our routine auditors who've come forward to meet with the selectmen in the town and have shared their observations of what's been going on here in the community. And they've actually proffered in a couple of their management reports that this department needs a little more resources, perhaps one person, perhaps another person. And so I haven't heard really anything different, quite frankly, and I'm a little disappointed. You know, my expectation would have been that Justin would have gone in and they would have documented some workflows within each of these departments and who does what, when, and follow these transactions through. And then also identify the number of transactions that are going through each of the departments, and granted, there is some seasonality associated with those. But then based on some sort of standards of manpower, financial manpower standards that he must have, or you guys must have in some sort of a database, then say, okay, Hatfield, then based on this number of, this productivity standard that is basically generally accepted throughout the industry, these are the transactions you have, these are the responsibilities that are associated with those.
Let's go.
You know, let's try to convert those to numbers of FTEs.
Well, so first off, excuse me. So first off, I didn't hear Justin say it was up to the Board of Selectmen to do this. I heard him say it was up to the management team, and that's up to us to determine who's going to be part of that management
Well,
team.
if you look at the table.
That's okay,
Brian,
so,
you'll hear him say
Mike,
it's up
I
to the
tried to
selectmen
tried to
provide
be
input.
polite, and I tried to let you make a comment. We don't need a dissertation on how Mike would have done it. This is how we did it. We hired Justin, we hired Bay State, there are workflows in place. Workflows have been put into place. That was part of what he's been doing here.
I think
So so you can have a copy of the report tomorrow, and if you would like to make a comment,
And one more comment. I would
But just-
just be cautious,
right,
both in terms of the selectmen and the finance committee, based on staffing, the treasurer collector's office, the accountant's office, we haven't even talked about tonight. And I don't know if the assessor's office is part of the scope of this, but I would be extremely cautious about staffing these departments and reorganizing these departments by being told what to do as opposed to being shown that it makes sense to do that.
thank you.
I mean, I think part of the misunderstanding, because I actually did expect something like what we received, is, you know, and seeing the price. I mean, we knew what we were buying, and this was essentially what I expected we were buying with what we were paying. You know, if we wanted something more detailed like that, which we may, then, you know, we'll have to look at that number. But this was sort of to begin the conversation, like, what's our next steps? And I think this gave us something to begin that conversation, which may lead to a more detailed thing like you're describing.
Stan?
So this report meets the scope. The scope that was presented, this meets it.
Correct.
I think so.
I don't want to belabor Mike's points, but I truly believe that when I came in tonight with a financial operations review, here's my notes, right here. Here's all my notes. And they go something like this, and I'll just go through them quick. And they're not in any particular order. How should a work plan work and the algorithms within the town hall? Develop a complete action plan. Who is responsible? Define the players and the responsibilities, timelines and milestones, metric and measure success, areas of responsibilities, job descriptions. What do we do well? What do we not do well? How do we cross over into those areas? Communication. You talk about communication a lot, but you just can't say communicate better. That's like asking you to think harder. You know, what does that mean? What does a team look like? You know, how do you formulate a team? There's non-functional people that make a great team, and there's really great people who are really functional and they can't produce anything. What does the workflow look like? How does everything relate to other departments? Throwing more people at this is not a solution until you figure out how you're going to even do this in the first place. To talk about putting more people in place makes no sense, because if there's organizational chaos right now, how does that fix anything? And when you start throwing more people in there, when you already have issues that you're trying to address, how are you going to train people into an environment that's already operating in chaos? So that's, I'm not seeing where we're going with this. You're asking some very important questions, and those are all the right questions. It's just, I don't think we're there yet to ask those questions.
And I agree with what you say we need. I just don't think that's where we're at in the process. So some context might be helpful. When we decided to go, I'm thinking back to that meeting, when we decided to go this route, we were really talking about a request we had for an additional staff person in that office. And we were hesitant to approve that because we don't know, in order to get past this current emergency we're in, needing to get reconciliation done. And so, we were uncomfortable just to say yes for the reasons that you were laying out. So we said, let's have someone come in, put some eyes on this really quick, and let us see, if we can do this, because we have a little bit of money that we can use to do that. And it was a very little bit of money. And that's what we got. And so maybe we'll go where you're saying. We're just not there.
So bringing it down, let's localize it a little bit, because I just went from about 50,000 feet. Let's bring it down to ground level here. We're moving into a financial season where we're gonna have to start moving clippity-clip to get things set for the town of Hatfield. Justin was right. The bus is flying down the road, and we're asking people to change the tires while the driver's just driving down the road, okay? We've got to come up with recap by the end of, we usually try to get it by September, October, get our recapitulation done so the selectmen can make a decision. At the same time, we're fast-tracking all the forms and all the financials in the town of Hatfield to draw another tax rate. If we don't get the tax rate set, we ran out of money 2 years ago. We struggled with it last year. We got the entire timeline laid out. What is the plan to hit those particular deadlines so we don't run into a problem at the end of the year again? I mean, that's just from my local level. I can imagine some of the other departments have some of the same concerns.
I just want to validate what you're saying. I came in on it late, this was already set up, and because I didn't know it was preliminary at the time, I tried to catch up. I was reading this, and I looked at it, and I said, well, I know that's a problem. I know when we have all those problems, what are you going to do about it? I didn't find answers, but I think what it was, I've learned, is preliminary to show, okay, these are where we got to start working, and now we need answers for all those questions. But I understand, because that's how I was looking at it when I read it. It's like, I know those are all problems. Give me some answers. But I don't think that's what I've learned since then. That's not what they contracted for. So.
So towards the end of this report, there's some very specific suggestions about duties and expectations for each position. Daily cash collections, reconciliation, account warrant processing, and that sort of thing. Now you said that these things should happen.
Correct.
Does that imply they're not happening?
Correct.
Okay. And whose job is it to make them happen?
So, I guess that falls back to, it's the town administrator and the board of selectmen.
Okay.
Right, so.
But they seem very helpful in terms, they're very specific. This should be done within 24 hours. This should be given to that person. Okay.
Right, I mean, there are some core transactional elements that, it doesn't matter if you're the smallest town in the state or the biggest city, right? I mean, there's some transactional elements that are very important to, moving the ball forward and keys to success, right? And so, basically, it all boils down to how timely and efficient can you take in money, and how timely efficient can you pay your bills and put it back out again, right? I mean, the entire.
These are specific suggestions for making those things happen.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and so we'll call that just low-hanging fruit, right? So, I mean, that's.
Well, it seems like important fruit.
Well, it is, right? And so, I mean, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit and have you think that it's non-important, right? I mean, all of these things are very important, right? And so, to the previous points, if you don't have efficiency and timeliness, of any of your financial transactions, right? I mean, what's going to happen is you bottleneck, right? And you stop the process from moving forward, right? You can't do the tax rate without a preliminary close, right? You can't, if you don't get a preliminary close and you don't get, some of your year-end statistical filings done, you'll stop getting your state aid, right? I mean, so there are things that happen, right? And so, are there a lot of challenges? There are. Are there a lot of things that need to change? There certainly are. Which one of those things you start with first? That's part of a larger discussion that needs to happen, with all of you, right? I mean, it's not up to me to necessarily tell you how to do it, right?
You mean one of these specific things happens first?
Those things should happen today.
Okay.
right? And so from there, I mean, but that's just transactional, right? I mean, that's
Well,
just.
it starts at the transaction level.
Right. These are things that are relevant today with the people that you have today in all of the offices today, you know. From there, how you restructure, how you reorganize, and, you know, what the new workflows between the departments look like and who's responsible for what, you know, that's a management decision, right? And so I can certainly tell you what towns do well and what towns don't do well, but at the end of the day, this is your town, you know, and you're all the representatives to the people that live in this town, and it needs to be a group decision, a management decision, you know, about how we're going to take the reins on this, you know, and move it to the next step.
Can you comment on, if I remember correctly, some towns, I could be misremembering this, some towns outsource a lot of this work. Is that something you can speak to, how that works, what that looks like?
So, yes and no. So some of the work is outsourced. So for, you know, it's common, for example, you know, in the assessor's office to outsource, you know, the revaluation or, you know, the real estate updates as part of the triennial process. For the treasurer and collector's office, it's common to outsource pieces of it, you know, like rather than doing collections in the office, you know, doing a lockbox service, or rather than doing payroll in-house, having a payroll service. You know, with the town accountant's office, it's basically always all done in-house. You know, so there are elements of each one of the offices that it is sometimes more cost efficient to do it externally than to do it internally, right? And that has to do with function with, you know, how big you are, or how many transactions you have, or, you know, what you have going on a case-by-case basis, right? But a lot of towns have a lot of success with that. You know, so for example, it's very common, you know, for the assessor's office to outsource the entire revaluation process, right? It's just the time and energy it would take an internal staff member to, you know, visit the number of homes required, or to do the personal property updates, and that's just not an efficient use of time. And it cost the town far more to do it internally than it does to outsource that, right? So there are elements that can certainly make it easier, you know. So for example, you know, our earlier conversation talked about how, because you have a local school department, you know, payroll is more of a burden than it would be in an equivalent sized town without a local school department, right? By a factor 2 to 1 usually. You know, there are outsourced payroll services that take all of those challenges away, right? And so what is now a 40-hour-a-week person, you know, maybe that trims back to 20 or 25 hours instead of 40 hours, you know? But again, that's only effective if it's done as part of a larger, you know, restructuring of how payroll works. I mean, you can't just simply go get a vendor and you're gonna just pick up all this time like the wave of a magic wand, right? It requires, you know, organizational restructuring and coordination, and it requires the departments that do their payroll a different way, and there's a lot of great efficiencies you can pick up from it, but it's not one department that has to change, it's all departments have to change, you know. And again, that's something that needs to be a key management decision, something that needs to be talked about and discussed, and department heads brought in and explained to what that change means to them, you know. And there are a lot of moving parts to something as simple as using a vendor to do payroll, you know. So again, there are individual pieces that on an office by office basis can be outsourced or can be privatized or can be consolidated. But again, you have to keep an eye on how the different departments fit together and how the puzzle pieces fit. Because a change in one office is going to ripple out and be changes in other offices as well.
Yeah, Daryl.
I apologize for coming in late, and I hope I'm not asking. I assume you're going to continue working with both the treasurer collector and the accountant going forward? Or is this the end of our
The report, this was, Justin's here tonight to present the
I know,
report to all of us.
but
You're still
going to continue working with Laura Lee and with Derek going forward?
Correct. Yeah.
So, that's good, thank you. I appreciate it, and I, along with Brian, have been part of some of the weekly conference calls as to the updates and how that's going, and I do think we're making progress. It's slow, but we're making progress. Number two, you know, I don't think we're gonna make any big decisions tonight. I think probably, from my personal point of view, what probably makes sense is, let's talk about a meeting, whether it's your next meeting, whether it's the first meeting in September, whether it's a separate meeting, just solely to take this up. Let's, give all of us a chance to digest this really fully, give you guys a chance to digest it, maybe get some if we have additional questions before then, we can ask those to Justin, and then that would be my suggestion going forward in this, so.
We did talk a little bit about that while you were out of the room.
Yep.
Laura Lee, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to just mention quickly that I have annually looked into doing payroll, outsourcing it. Each year I've looked into it. And I've brought that information to the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. The cost for that runs between $17,000 and $18,000 a year, and it far from eliminates the work from the Treasurer's Office. We're still responsible for receiving all the timesheets from the departments. We still have to make sure everything adds up. We have the correct signatures. We need to enter them into the system. We're still responsible for the accrual of vacation, sick, and personal time, retirement, all the withholdings, and we still have to deal with the bank because an outsourced payroll company cannot touch our bank, so we're still dealing with direct deposit. So even with, paying that $17,000, $18,000 a year, we're still looking at probably a good 16 to 20 plus hours a week of a person. So, it's more cost effective to have a 35-hour-a-week employee in-house. And it also allows us to deal with retirements when employees retire as well, because all that information is here at the town, and we're not, paying to reach out to a payroll company because they're going to charge us to retrieve that information for us each time someone retires. And I will continue to research outsourcing payroll on a regular basis so that if at any point in the future it makes more sense, I'll continue to share it with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, and if that ever changes. But currently, right now, I have not found that to be more cost effective.
I noticed that there's something getting outsourced now in the collector's office.
In the collector's office, yes, lockbox. So the quote on that was less than $3,000 a year. So we certainly found that to be a cost-effective option.
Did you have a follow-up? I mean, what exactly is that?
Can you come and
Elaborate?
explain?
Yeah.
Can you explain that? I don't.
Sure. So what it is it's Century Bank. So the payments are, if the taxpayer chooses to, the payment is mailed to a P.O. box in Medford, which is picked up several times a day. It's brought to a processing center where there's an OCR scan line that's scanned. There's a payment file that is created electronically that is sent to the town, and the checks are scanned and they're deposited that day into a town bank account at Century Bank. And I receive that file in the morning and I post it electronically. So, it all happens.
What's that cost us?
The estimate that we got was just under $3,000 a year.
And that's
It was.
out of your budget?
It is, out of my budget. Yeah.
And that was one of Jason's recommendations.
Justin?
Sorry.
The additional interest that the town is earning on that money is probably well worth the $3,000.
I'm sorry, what was that, Mike?
The additional interest that the town is making on receiving that money faster than the normal process would provide it.
Well,
Normal
interest
process.
is pretty low right now, but it's certainly, it is getting
More
the money into
efficient.
the bank quicker, and it does take, a stack of mail, during this time of year. It's certainly helping our office, it's well worth the time that it's saving us to process the daily mail that would be coming in this time of year. And just to give you an example, The files that I'm uploading have a tendency to be right around, $80 to, $140,000 a morning, and it typically takes about 7 minutes. And then it might take about 30 minutes to run the reports and file things, but, even if you were to say an hour a day, that's far less time than what it was taking me when I was
Efficient,
doing
it's
it.
efficiency.
It is,
It's quicker and it's efficiency.
it is.
I'm all for that. Stan, did you have something, or?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to stay much longer, and I don't know if I'll be able to make all the meetings as you guys progress forward. I just want to caution and maybe ask that, two things. One, be careful on how you use the word management and manage things, because you manage things, you lead people. You've been put into this position to lead people and to do things in the best interest of this town. So if you're doing things based on this report for the convenience of the people in the town hall, I just caution you to make sure that it's in the best interest of the constituents that put you in this place in the first place.
Yeah. Always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin, I'll say thank you first, but while you're here, you got any Finance Committee or Select Board or Marlene have any additional questions? All right. We appreciate it. The report itself is more detailed than just the high-level overview, because we didn't ask you to just read the whole thing to us, but rather hit on the key points, so thank you for that. I know we will continue to be in touch through Marlene with the financial team. And do you have any last-minute comments you'd like to make? Or, we appreciate the assistance you've given us thus far.
No, I mean, I think, it's, maybe to Cindy's point earlier, right? I mean, I fully, recognize and accept that there's nothing in here that's a surprise to you, right? I mean, if you read the 2016, management letter from the auditors that came out last week, it says the same thing. If you read the 2012 Technical Assistance Bureau report, it says the same thing. I mean, it's, I wasn't going to find anything in this engagement that was new and surprising, right? And so, I mean, I think you've all done a fine job up to this point, talking to the departments, and understanding that there is an issue, and you all seem to have a grasp of what those issues are and what the challenges were. And so I think, that it really just needs to be about a focus of, action items to move forward at this point. And we look forward to working with all of you folks and, identifying those action items and actually making them happen.
Yeah,
Just one
go ahead.
last question. Right now, working with the departments, do you feel that we're on track to meet the DOR requirements for September?
So right now, I would say that hitting anything for September will be a challenge. And that, the steps that we started today is working with the, the treasurer to, work through the cash book reconciliation, to match up with the bank statement reconciliation work that's already been done. And, there's a lot more work to be done, right? And so I would say that, at this point, September is probably not the most realistic goal for a lot of the things that are left to be done,
I wonder if that's going to be a concern for us, because DOR sort of gave us a deadline. I thought that we have to be on target to get our other half of the free cash for the end of September. Am I correct or incorrect in that?
Well, Stephen, if I was right name, Stephen Williams, was at
Terry
Terry
sorry,
Terry Williams.
was at our first meeting, and Terry from DOR is well aware of what's going on, so I don't think we're gonna get in any more trouble than we already are, so. But Terry was great, so.
I think it was a goal.
Yep.
All of these are goals, and they're legitimate goals when they're made. And,
Then reality comes in.
Thank you. And then there's reality.
Would it be too much to ask for Justin to divert from whatever else he's gonna continue to do for you guys over the next few months and ask him to come up with a specific action plan that would have the town, with our financial resources that we have available, meet some deadline for the DOR,
It's in the works, Mike.
It's in the works.
so there is a plan?
The plan is being formulated,
Okay.
yes. Louise?
It's good for people.
I would be interested in hearing what Justin feels would be necessary in order to meet the deadline.
So, at this point, it's just staffing resources. I mean, we're talking about, there's just the sheer volume of reconciliation work that needs to be done. So, you know, the collector's office has had some additional help, which has certainly started moving a lot of this forward a lot quicker. You know, we're now engaged to assist, you know, with, basically the other part of the treasurer's office reconciliation that we're going to work with the accountant's office. I mean, it basically boils down to a sheer number of man hours at this point. You know, it's not that any of the transactions are easier or harder to review or to reconcile. We're talking about just a sheer number of transactions to be reviewed and reconciled. You know, it's, you know, it took all of FY17 to get behind in FY17, and so, you know, moving forward, we're talking about, you know, reconciling, you know, 12 months worth of activity in, you know, several weeks, you know, an entire year's worth of activity in a month or two or three, you know, and so, we will certainly dedicate as much resources as we can to help the town, you know, move that goal forward. You know, and the expectation is that, you know, we can continue to be engaged with the Department of Revenue so that they know what the status is and what's going on, you know, and again, meet and update regularly, you know, so that everybody's aware of what stage we're at, what challenges there are ahead, you know, and keep an eye on what that deadline should be.
Isn't there a free cash issue that's associated with this timetable?
Well,
You guys
well,
planning some sort of a special based on
We were going to,
cash
yeah.
being certified?
Yes. Well, that's our goal. I mean, till we have the certified amount, we can't have the meeting. Louise?
Does that?
Then Stan.
I guess I missed part of that. Does it mean that the town needs to adjust the contract with this company so that they can put more man-hours in? How does the town get the man-hours to get the town caught up to where it should be?
So,
Probably spend more money.
So, I mean, what we've proposed right now is, you know, we have 2 people working on this project right now, you know, and our hope is, that we'll get the cash book reconciliation updated to the point where the bank statement reconciliation is, and, which I believe is December 2016, and subsequently get the town accountant's office to the same place, you know, in the next, you know, 4 to 6 weeks. In talking to the Department of Revenue, so the last update that I gave them was this past Thursday. And so, again, the Department of Revenue is aware of, you know, what your progress is as a town and where everything stands, so that, you know, there's no surprises on that side either. In terms of, you know, will more money get you there faster, I guess? I mean, the answer isn't necessarily yes. You know, from our standpoint as a firm, you know, this is the year-end close for everybody, you know, and so we don't necessarily have a tremendous amount of additional resources that we can give you to make it move faster than it is. You know, with that said, you know, we will do whatever it takes to help you guys, you know, move forward. But, I mean, I can't categorically guarantee that it will be done by a date, you know. But with the help of, you know, the staff that you have on site, and the process that we're putting into place, I do have high expectations that, this process will, continue to accelerate forward, and we can make it through FY17 in an appropriate amount of time.
And so the question I have to ask is, while we're doing this, we're now in fiscal year 18. Are we keeping, and I know we're new into that fiscal year, but are we running in parallel? Is fiscal year 18 going to start being, I know it's the 1st of August, so it probably takes a little while to get all the number from July, but obviously the goal's got to be to work in parallel of cleaning up 17 and staying current on 18, right? I mean, have we gotten to that point yet to have that conversation internally with our financial team, or is it too soon, since it's only the first week of August to?
Yeah, so I mean, like on the treasurer's side, bank statements aren't even issued for most accounts at this point, right? So it's premature.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that, generally going forward, right? I mean, the bank statements would all be in, this week or early next week. It wouldn't be unreasonable for, excluding the backlog, if we just look at, the July activity, it wouldn't be unreasonable for, July to be, closed by the treasurer's office, in the next 7 to 10 days,
Great.
And then it moves on to the town accountant's
Yep.
office, and it's 7 or 10 days there, and then by the end of August, all of July is reconciled, booked, finalized, and signed off.
And I'm sure you and everybody in this room and everybody on TV knows where I'm going with this, which is, and you said it earlier, I think Mike, Stan, everybody, we don't want to be back here a year from now.
Right.
I refuse to be here a year from now under these circumstances. So I just want to make sure that we, as a town, don't lose sight of, let's start working on the current stuff, especially while we have you guys here to make sure, because I'd like to think the ball gets rolling in the right direction, it keeps moving, and that's a good thing.
Wasn't that part of the two-pronged problem that we have? One is catching up.
Yeah, and staying
then the
current.
second is putting, as Justin, I think, has talked about, putting the processes in place so it doesn't happen again, to make sure that we have the necessary systems in place so that
And roles and
we stay,
responsibilities,
and
right?
roles, and so we stay.
But until we
stay
get to
current.
that point, Daryl, I just wanted to make sure that, we're.
Right, I mean, and I mean, it all comes back to, you still have a chicken and an egg problem
Yeah.
here, right? Is
Right.
that, it's, the treasurer's office should be able to turn it around, but, we started our conversation with the treasurer's office as a structural, capacity issue as well, right? And so it's, some of these things are doable, and some of them are less doable, right? And so, the reality is that, that there's still counter coverage and distractions, and the treasurer's office is not appropriately staffed for how they're set up today, right? And so that will impact, and your mileage will vary, right? I mean, that will impact the effectiveness of being able to get these things done, and so.
And I mean, that leads me to, because it does sound like, we do have somewhat of an urgent situation here when it comes with free cash. And so I wonder if there's some, at least small actions we can take at the next time we meet in a week or two in regards to, one, the privacy aspect. So largely addressing the interruption. So a counter person, even if it's a temporary person, ideally someone maybe who's already familiar with the town, maybe someone who's retired or whatnot, who can just deal with the people coming to drop off stuff, who are gonna chat, and then making sure that the treasurer has a private place to work, so that we can just get more man hours towards this. And that seems like a pretty quick, short-term solution to get us through the next 2 months, to help get us through the next 2 months.
Stan?
To follow up on that.
Let me speak,
Stan?
I've been very patient.
Stan?
And I would like to build on Mike's point and Louise's point, Daryl's point, and your point. And I apologize for being pointed and direct, but the third prong to Daryl's point is, there's a third prong to that, is you need a definitive timeline with milestones, holding people accountable and not letting them off the hook if you want to hit this deadline.
Right.
Waiting 2 weeks is putting us 5 weeks away from hitting our first milestone, and we're 7 weeks away now. throwing people who might or might not know or not know what they're doing is, I respectfully disagree, bad idea. If you need to spend more money, you take the people that already know the job and pay them the extra money to get it done. But hold them accountable till you get the job done. You can't, hope is, and to Justin's point, hope is not a plan. I hope, my goal, you lay it out succinctly, each line, where you need to be, with the deadlines, and you hold people accountable. Then you will get to where you need to be. That's what we should be focusing on. And before we leave tonight, that's what we should have in plan. Who's gonna write that plan? You guys decide who's gonna spearhead it, and then the rest of the people have to follow in. Now, leadership is not about being legitimized by your title. It's by the good judgment that you display in pushing this forward. I'm hoping that you guys might come up with the next step before we leave tonight.
I mean, I'm totally open to an action step tonight, and I hear what you're saying, but it's one, not like so as far as holding people accountable, a big player in this is an elected position, and so the board has always been very limited in their ability to set any sort of accountability standards to that are enforceable. So I guess the accountant would be where that focus might be.
The accountant is a paid position.
So that one could, but also.
In regards to the elected positions, that doesn't become your responsibility, that becomes the responsibility of the people in the town of Hatfield. And being that this is a democracy, whenever you remove those positions, you remove a part of this town's character, and you remove a part of what makes Hatfield Hatfield. And when you start appointing positions, we become nothing different than Springfield or Boston or whatever. You're gonna lose the rural character. I don't taking appointed positions and elected positions and just tossing them back and forth so lightly. This is huge.
Well, but at the same time, I mean, you just spoke about holding someone accountable and then, and also addressing things in the short term, but then, you know, the voters holding someone accountable is a somewhat very long-term solution. I mean, that's not gonna happen, if that were the case that needed to happen, that's not gonna happen until this time, a little sooner than this next year.
Rather than belaboring this by getting into the ideological discussion of appointed versus elected positions, I think one of the things that this team needs to consider is, and although I grant that Brian's concern over what's happening in fiscal 18 is of concern. But if you've got a limited number of resources that can be dedicated to reconciliation effort, okay? Don't worry about fiscal 18. Get them all those resources dedicated 100% to fiscal 17. Reconcile that fiscal year so as quickly as possible, so that we get that free cash as quickly as possible. Then let's deal with fiscal 18 and what's required to play catch up in that year. Otherwise, if you've got those resources straddling the fence, 17 is just going to continue to, you know, take 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks, and yeah, you might be able to be closing some of 18's months, but, you know, wouldn't you rather have 17 apply earlier than that?
So I guess I need to clarify. So my comments were, yes, it's a full press on 17, but we cannot lose sight of 18.
No, you can't.
So if 3 or 4 months from now, we go, oh, it's time to do July. We should be able to do both, because if we stay current, then we don't have to go back and make up 10, 11, 12 months. That was the gist of my comment. All right.
I also wanted to respond to the second part of what you said, though, in relation to the staff. I don't think there's, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think the option is just paying people to stay more. I mean, I think they're giving all they've got. That's my understanding, is that they're giving all that they've got. So that's why I think the counter person, someone to at least answer the phones, really, because it's the only measure to me in the very short term in order to meet that free cash goal.
When are we gonna meet next?
Couple weeks?
Yep, it's time.
Well, all right. So you're talking about when is the Finance Committee going to meet with the Board of Selectmen and the
You
financial
wanna
team?
meet with us and discuss this further, or how do you wanna
Yeah.
handle it?
Well, I think yes, but I think we need to to Justin's point, we collectively and the Board of Selectmen, along with Marlene and Justin and the treasurer account, I think we need to start coming up or formulating exactly what roles and responsibilities are, and what can and can't change to begin that process. To everybody else's point, though, tonight, we're not going to put the brakes on in the middle of all this and shift gears. I mean, if we're able to find, and it works out this way over the next couple of weeks, the right person to perhaps assist, even if it's just temporary, to free up people to do the financial aspect, and that person can just, be the person that's at the counter. I mean, I would think of something as simple, which probably may or may not make a difference, but just turning your desk facing the other direction. I think that would be huge, personally. Just Brian's thought. Because then your back is to everybody, and you don't make eye contact, and you can just keep your head down, and that's okay. I've been in a business office for a long time. So, can we get together and send something out to say, how's this date or this date? Because I know it's still summer for vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than pick something tonight.
I mean, you're right.
Before the end of August, I'd like us to all get together, because
But
today's
to your point, I agree, the financial team, they're, the group that's been meeting, if they can initially meet and lay some of this
Yes,
out,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. Stan,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And then building on your point, I think that's fine, Brian. And if that's what everybody agrees on, that's fine. I think at least identify a person who's going to put together all the steps that it takes to
Yes.
meet the goal tonight. You're not going to identify them tonight, whether it's Justin or whether it's anybody around the table that says, okay, these are the 20 things we need to do and these are the dates, and then come back to you and present it, and then at least you have some form of algorithm to follow.
Right, and we aren't there yet, but that has been what the goal of the select board and the finance committee and town administrator Justin has been. But we know people were chomping at the bit to at least get the report that we asked for. We didn't expect the report to say anything different that we haven't heard before. But sometimes you have to keep asking the question and getting the same answer, if it is the same answer, to have people realize change needs to take place. Just because we tell them doesn't mean anything. When you have this...
That's almost the definition of insanity right there.
Well,
asking the same question and expecting a different answer.
well, I mean, it's a little more detailed. We have somebody in here where, my point is, Stan, we've gone to town meeting in the past for certain things. We've said we need more people. No, you don't. Got done for years, part-time. You don't need more people. Well, guess what? We're being told by different companies, have nothing to do with Hatfield, you need more people. So we're going to go to the town, if that's what the decision is. We're going to ask for more people, and the town's going to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And then we're going to say, okay, it's democracy, right? You just said it. That's Democrat. That's
A couple more
Democrat.
years, someone else will come in here to tell us that we need more people.
So, that's okay. That's okay. I've learned to just accept it, and that's okay.
To answer the question based on what?
All right. Let's let Justin go home.
Can we go home?
You guys you guys can go home. We're only on, hey, we went out of order. We're only taking up item number 2 next. We're going to take 5 minutes, okay, John? You guys okay with just take 5 minutes, let everybody kind of clear out? They're certainly welcome to stay. So we're going to go back to our agenda. Topic number 2, we have a request from the Holy Name of Jesus Church for a 3-day liquor license for a fundraiser that they're going to hold on August 20th at the Hatfield Town Pavilion. I think they do this every year, actually.
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Is there a second?
I'll
second it. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And I'm stating because of my relationship and my involvement with the organization.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. We also have a liquor license 1-day request from Heather Clark for the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, also to be at the Pavilion on September 24th in the afternoon. It's a fundraising event, sorry.
I'll make a motion to accept this one.
Second that?
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Topic number 4, Marlene, is this?
Yes, this is a memorandum of understanding. This is between the town of Hatfield
Oh,
and the Board of Selectmen Chair, acting on behalf of the town of Hatfield, and the school department. This was a recommendation the auditors had pointed out in their audit report, the school department. It's regarding the end-of-the-year report for the
end-of-year
school
reporting to the
department.
town. So actually, if I'm not mistaken, the auditors reported that we should just have some sort of an official document,
For
which is all
reporting
for
requirements.
reporting. So that's all this is. It's not changing the way anything's done. We've been doing it all along between the school department and the town. It
Correct.
just sort of tightens it up and makes everybody happy in the auditor's department. Okay, so.
That just requires the approval of the board and the chair to sign
Okay,
it.
so entertain a motion to accept the memorandum of understanding as presented.
Okay, second that?
A second.
All right. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Old business.
Center
Sale of
School.
the center school update.
Well, I had a telephone discussion this afternoon with our town council, who had a telephone discussion with the attorney for the buyers.
Yeah.
And the attorney for the buyers, Attorney Tom Reedy, is recommending a closing date of Tuesday, August 8th. So he's going to consult with his buyers to confirm that. I had hoped to receive confirmation of that before 5 o'clock. I did not. So I expect to hear something tomorrow.
Tuesday,
Tuesday, August 8th.
August 8th, in the year 2017. Is that correct?
Is the closing date.
So-
Proposed closing date.
So a week from today,
Mm-hmm.
which is August 9th, we should be
It should
a
be
done
done.
deal. Okay.
Correct.
All right, all kidding aside, it is what it is. The attorneys have been working together. There's been nothing major. It's been lots of little things, and everybody's just...
Couple of small things came up.
Everybody's just making sure that all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed, and hopefully next week at this time, we'll all be celebrating the sale of the building across the street. All right, thank you. Town Hall renovations project update.
Just quickly, I'm in the final stages with the architect to get the contract finalized, and hopefully the board can sign that at a meeting on August 16th.
Okay.
That's my goal.
So we're waiting for the final edits to the
They're
contract.
ready to begin. It's just, they just submitted to me on Monday their final edits for the contract.
And we all know as the center school is a good example how long contracts can take. All right, had to throw that in there, sorry. All right, community preservation agreement for Smith Charities.
This is a letter of agreement between the Preservation Committee and Smith Charities, and it just requires the board's approval of the agreement and signature by the chair.
Right. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a
this?
motion to accept it.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Just a quick question, second.
Sure.
This is the one that was approved at town meeting?
Yes, this is a capital, I'm sorry, it's
Donation.
not
Yeah.
it was a community preservation
Yep.
project funded by community.
Yep, so this, yes, this was,
Preservation.
the town meeting.
Right.
article.
Just want to make sure that was the same one, not a...
Yep, correct.
Second that?
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, oops. What did I do with my... I think in our packet, okay, sorry, I was going out of order. Community compact update, Marlene?
If you recall, last year, we received an award from the Commonwealth. We had submitted an application for Community Compact and identified financial management
Right.
as our scope. And Hatfield sort of got lost in the shuffle. the technical assistance we'll be receiving is through the Division of Local Services, and they've been pretty busy. I received a phone call from them the other day. They should be here the middle of August. We had identified 2 areas of financial management. One was long-range planning, forecasting, specific to capital projects. The other was looking at our financial management structure. And since that's something that Bay State Municipal Accounting did, there's another option under financial management, which is reviewing or implementing financial policies.
Oh,
The town does have financial policies. We're going to review those financial policies and look at updating them.
great.
And I should say that's a recommendation. My recommendation to the board is that we not look at the financial management
Yeah, I
as
will.
originally applied for and review the financial policies.
Sure. Makes
Division of
sense.
Local Services will need just a letter from us,
Okay.
identifying that we're switching those topics.
All right, so if Ed and Cindy are good with that, I am. And that's the change we make. If they need something in writing and you need me to sign it, just,
Yes.
unless you can sign it, that's fine too. So just, you guys okay if we shift gears with what we want them to help us with?
Yes.
Okay.
I
All
think
right,
given
so
the point that we're at, the financial structure situation, that the policies are probably.
I think it's a great, I think it's great, actually. I think the timing couldn't be any better to have policies in place. All right, thanks. All right, you included the fiscal year 18 cherry sheet estimated receipts, which I don't think are really, it's just.
And actually, they are right on target with what we had, they just came out a couple weeks ago in the budget.
So this is what we identified when we put our budget together for town meeting,
We did.
which was based on estimated receipts, and now we got the real thing. And they're right on. Okay, cool.
Right on
Thanks.
target.
I keep putting this one away by accident. Did I miss anything? We've been jumping all over the place.
I
Any
don't have any-
unanticipated new business?
I don't have any
Okay. Ed or
unanticipated
Cindy?
new business.
All right, so the Board of Selectmen will be going into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, numeral 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and not returning to public session. So we need a roll call vote from each of us to approve doing what I just said. So is there, so a roll call vote to go into executive session and not return to?
Jaworski says, yeah, aye.
Moriarty, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, John. Thanks a lot.